Good evening and welcome to the Overwatch Pacific Championship English broadcast. We're in week 10. I'm Kevin Everett-Walker, joined with me tonight, Matt, Pixie, Carol. Day 3 as well. 4 matches tonight. And wow, we got Machi back-to-back, Fireball's up there as well, Blank's back, and you know what? A couple of others.
We do, yeah, a couple of others. Just a few other teams in here. Yeah, we've got a pretty solid night ahead of us. These are kind of interesting games because this is this is the part where we're just kind of rounding out the round robin.
Pretty much.
We've got, these sort of expected results ahead of us, but actually we're kind of at this point because of how the standings sit, where any given upset totally changes who gets what seed, who gets what finishing place for the end of the tournament. And if you do get upset now, you don't have any recovery time left.
The exciting thing is, like, as much as you say expected results, this is about as the most unexpected period because teams are beating teams that weren't expected to beat before. Here we go, Machi's going to come up first and they're going to be playing against DeToNator, so maybe this is more of an expected result. That being said though, that middle of the pack has started to really jostle around a bit.
Yeah, it started to look funky. And look, even then, look, this is DeToNator. DeToNator took a map off HQ. They took a map off Fireball just last night, actually. Maybe they can do that to Machi. Heck, maybe they can cause an upset. It's hard to say. But after that, they then had to face Fireball, who are arguably more likely to cause an upset.
Absolutely, because Fireball is one of those times that has also really moved themselves up. DeToNator's kind of in that space as well, but they're still a little bit unknown to me because they have made some improvements, enough improvements to maybe take down Fireball later. That's going to be a question mark. Yeah, certainly. So there's, I mean, a question mark is the way to put it. There are a lot of question marks still over the tournament. If anything, right, even though the standings are pretty much locked, there are more question marks than ever. And Machi as well, I mean, they had a pretty rough game. I don't even say rough game. It was a very, very close game and
extremely
realistically
close.
could have gone either way. We're going to have a few words from both sides before we get things started. From Cassis on the left, Delave on the right.
And 3/4 pants in the middle.
今日は自分の代わりに日本の若くて有望なプレイヤーが出場します。自分も控室で応援するので皆さんも一緒に彼と一緒に戦う今日のデトネーターを応援よろしくお願いします。
我们的 DeToNator 是说今天他不会上场比赛，但是呢，他们从日本来了一位助阵的选手，希望大家可以帮这位新选手还有全新的 DTN 加油打气。那想请问一下，这个教练这边有什么要回应的呢
？DeToNator 个人的实力和队伍都慢慢在进步，那绝对是我们不容小觑的对手。谢谢。
Cassis is saying DeToNator has been steadily improving as well, so we'll definitely look forward to playing the game, but we won't take them lightly. So,
well, I'm curious to see who this new DeToNator member is.
The other thing is, Machi is always the team that just has to play against another team when they bring on that new person.
And yesterday, Machi mentioned there was an interview after their Hong Kong Attitude series with Randy and Rai, subs for both those teams, and Rai did mention he was meant to be on the starting roster today. We'll see if that actually does come to pass, but that would mean both of these teams are actually fielding slightly different lineups. Question marks abound.
That's an interesting one. Rai's there saying like, oh yeah, I'll play tomorrow. Cass is on the side like, maybe we'll think about that one. Who is actually going to be playing? I think it's a play called, it's not Sayonara, but it's like really close. It starts with a Sayo, and I've sort of read about a little bit about this roster change-up on the old interwebs that exist out there.
Wow.
And
how do you find
I'm not 100% sure it's this exact play, but I do know that DeToNator.GOLD has been looking to recruit a new player for some time now to sort of either sub for the team or maybe play for another player or something along the line. So here it is. This guy's going to get revealed. It's quite exciting because Fireball have recently put Tito on the team, who was, by the way, on that Fireball team for some time. So actually take a look at what we got to look forward to tonight. So starting off Machi, DeToNator.GOLD, then they go up against Fireball, then Fireball take on Blank, and we'll finish off with Flash Wolves and Sun Sister later on tonight. So DeToNator.GOLD versus Fireball, of course, is going to be the real interesting one. Both teams going to have a new member.
Yeah, and they're actually, look, the standings aren't going to change for those two teams, but these two teams could potentially be quite close. Fireball are actually looking quite good recently, but DeToNator.GOLD are clearly on the up. If this new player really pushes them to another level, and if he's on the starting roster, you'd kind of like to think he is, then maybe this is actually a win DeToNator.GOLD can pick up, and it would be the first win they pick up against a team that isn't Sun Sister. That would be a very significant way for them to wrap up this tournament.
Absolutely, and Fireball's in this weird spot where they're 5 points below the team above them and 5 above the team below them. So realistically, at this stage of the tournament, they're kind of not. They're not really moving anywhere. They're 6th place, and they're just going to be 6th place. And it's kind of the way the 5 and below is kind of shaped like that. I wouldn't even say 4 and below. Really, the teams we're looking at of who can take what spot, 2nd and 3rd. Blank and AHU, who's going to take what? It's starting to look like Blank's going to secure 2nd, but we'll have to see later on tonight how their matches still go, how do
Exactly.
AHQ's further matches go. But as far as Machi and DeToNator.GOLD, they look like they're staying where they are.
Yeah, and the truth is, look, Blank aren't out of the woods yet. They did most recently face an upset at the hands of Hong Kong Attitude. If Fireball were to upset as well, Blank do lose the shot at that second place. They would be relying, once again, like what happened with Hong Kong Attitude, they would be relying on Fireball if they beat Blank to then also beat AHQ. Yeah. So it's not comfy. It's not comfortable at all.
All right, let's take a look at these lineups now. We're going to have maybe a couple surprises. Is Rai going to show up for Machi? Who is DeToNator's new player? A lot of questions here. Here we go. Rai, in fact, is going to be playing. Nuns is going to be taking a step down for this time, for this sort of match. So maybe a little bit of a welcome back kind of moment here for Rai. We'll be interested to see how he's progressed with the team, because maybe this is Fireball's opportunity to take down Machi while they're making a roster swap.
Or DeToNator, rather.
Sorry, yeah, DeToNator, rather.
And here we go, Sensei and Sabagod. So that's actually a double substitution there.
Actually, you're absolutely right. Samurai D is actually off as well. So Sabagod is on, so, you know, sayonara, whatever. Sayonara to, I guess, Delave and Samurai D for this particular match. So that's a bit of a curveball. Not only one substitution, but two. Now, interesting, a little bit of a tidbit is Sensei was an original member
of
DeToNator.GOLD before their time at the OPC. So let's take a look now. Rai, he's got the Tracer Soldier and the Farah on there as well.
So just a note about Rai as well, the reason we actually haven't seen him for a while is they had some communication issues with him, and they were very upfront about this. He didn't communicate enough with the team. He was just a little bit too quiet. Nuns was similarly quiet, but they were getting more out of it, and they felt like they could be quite centralized in their shot calling. So obviously, on the side, they have still been scrimming with Rai. They have still been working with Rai. He's not just been, you know, permanently on the bench. So them bringing him out, I feel, says that they must feel his communication has now surpassed that of Nuns. They have, first of all, fixed that issue and is now, you know, having this move in positive directions. And we did feel when we first saw him, Rai was an incredibly strong offense player.
I would say that it's probably more likely along the lines of his communication is at a standard and a level where it's acceptable to put him on stage in a match rather than he's better than Nuns. I think it would be very difficult to surpass Nuns right now. He set quite a standard for the team that I believe is difficult to surpass. And let's take a look at the new player, Sabagod. That's one way to open up your initial, I guess, debut in a professional match. No heroes on that sort of list there because we haven't seen what he plays. We'll find out.
So,
Sensei as well.
Here we go. Yeah, and like you said, a bit of an old schooler from this team. By the way, just a note about...
He's playing Winston, clearly.
Just a note about Sabagod as well. I wouldn't be surprised if this is a substitution because Delave is very much Lucio only, and actually right now you do need supports that can flex onto all support roles, and it could just be that that's what they get out of Sabagod. So I think we might even see some very different lineups in terms of compositions coming out of DeToNator here, facilitated by these roster swaps.
It's interesting that it's this late in the tournament that teams are starting to really make these swaps. A little bit of an interesting tidbit about Delave is that he was originally on the DeToNator Black team instead. So that that's the DeToNator sister team. They have DeToNator.GOLD, DeToNator Black, and then the newly formed DeToNator Korea with 5 members on that one. So Anakin here as well, a bit of a superstar. He wasn't on the original DeToNator.GOLD team, and so he was a part of one of those new wave guys that came on with Delave as well to join DeToNator.GOLD. But now making a couple changes in there. And if you remember, Delave was actually the original Tracer DPS player, then moved on to support. Now he's been moved off, and they got a new support player altogether.
Yeah. I mean, it certainly makes you feel like DeToNator are still a team that is just forming what is going to be their best lineup, and they are still holding their own enough in this tournament. And if they really can hit upon, you know, the best iteration, if you will, of DeToNator.GOLD, they are looking to go into the relegation tournament here. So you do want to have the best iteration of your team going into that. You want to feel like you are better than you were a couple of weeks ago when you do finally hit that point, and that sets you up nicely to get back in for Season 2.
Absolutely, and I think, you know, not only that, but teams are also building for the second season. So, for example, you got Fireball bringing TDWAT back into the lineup. So it's just to clear things up, not actually a new member. This is an original member of Fireball before they were picked up under the Fireball organization. TDWAT, I watched it on tournament. He was actually TDWAT version 2 back then.
TDWAT V2.
In December, now he's TDWAT V3, but it's the same guy.
He's their tank-playing robot, and they've like updated him a little. Updated the
Software's improved.
The TDWAT iOS.
I can't wait for the future versions of TDWAT. That must be really good. Anyway, map pick did come through. Nepal is going to be what we're playing. Sorry, was it Nepal or Lijiang?
It was Nepal.
I thought I saw Nepal.
It was Nepal.
It was Nepal. So Excuse that, says Lee Jung, but it is in fact Nepal. It made me do a little bit of a double take as well, but there it is.
You start to doubt yourself, like production is gaslighting us. But it is going to be Nepal, so there we go. That's Machi's pick as well, so this is quite interesting. It's hard to say where Machi sit on Nepal, but I feel like this is a pick driven by Rai.
Maybe. I think it's interesting because I don't believe that Rai has the exact same hero pool of Nuns. So what you get out of Nuns is you specifically get a lot of strength from his Genji play. I don't believe you get that out of Rai because I haven't seen Rai play the Genji. What Rai plays is Soldier, he plays Pharah. And maybe a bit of Tracer.
He plays Tracer.
Except Kant is right now a very good Tracer on the team. It will be difficult to dislodge Kant. So if they want to play Tracer Genji, they may have to play Rai on the Tracer, and then Kant has to pick up the Genji. And that's going to be interesting.
It would be interesting, but here's the thing. I wouldn't be surprised actually if they run Tracer Soldier and actually have Kant on the Soldier. Rai can also play Soldier as well. I think there is still very much a way that this can kind of work for them. And if anything, I feel they have a bit more flexibility by not having to have Nuns on a Genji. And also, because Nuns has been playing Genji, we actually don't really know what Kant's other DPS is like. We don't really know how his Soldier is or how his Genji is. We do feel his Tracer is decent, it's certainly getting better, but we also know that Ryze is quite good. So what this could well be is to open up their other DPS play. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the motivation.
I would not say that Rai will be playing Tracer. He would only play Tracer if Kant is playing Genji. And I believe this is a substitution that now kind of says they will be playing double hit scan. Kant will be staying on the Tracer. You don't take Kant off Tracer at this stage. He's too good at Tracer on his team. He's too solidified as a Tracer player to take him off right now. And Rai coming in, he's the substitution. He's the one that has to, I would say, fit around the team rather than the other way around, because it's not like he's the starting lineup. Nuns is on the starting lineup. Much at a stage now in the tournament where, much like Fireball, their standing doesn't really get affected here. They're not at risk of dropping down. They can't really take that full spot off Honko Attitude either. Now it's like, well, let's put Rai on the actual stage, see how he does. But I believe firmly that Nuns is still on the starting lineup and Rai is not.
Yeah, I think that would be a pretty fair view. Certainly we will get some more insight, I suppose. And I mean, I am just at any rate curious to see how well Rai performs here, because we did see him right at the top. And also, at the top of the tournament was when Machi were having some of their weaker performances, but in a way were looking... This is going to sound a little weird, so bear with me. They were looking good, except for the fact that their execution wasn't quite working out. So, with that kind of in mind, I would be interested to see if they are looking a bit better, because, you know, execution struggling often happens because you have a player who isn't quite communicating well. If they feel that they've fixed that problem with Rai, we could actually see a strong Machi with better execution.
I might have to go back and look at it, but I don't think Kant was on that lineup to start with. It was Nuns and Rai, so
you're quite right.
Maybe that's the one. But this is now another version of Machi that we've got to look forward to, and it is the Genji Tracer.
And it is Rai on the Genji, so this is a little bit different. This isn't something that he's necessarily pulled out. And now he's actually got Nonez boots to fill in another kind of sense of the word. But so far, after we get started, they absolutely destroy Savagon to the backline. Rai does lose his life for it, but they're getting the good pressure down, picking Toddlov and Sensei, and they're going to be able to get over this first point. That was actually just a pretty well-executed dive, save for Rai dying.
And actually, Dodolov and Savagon have swapped a little bit, because usually you expect Dodolov to be on the Ana, on the Zenyatta, and Delay was playing Lucio. Now Dodolov is the one playing the Lucio instead, so that is a little bit of an interesting change-up that we got to look forward to. Opening fight does, in fact, win for Machi. You actually check DeToNator's kind of positioning there. They got kind of caught down in that bottom area, and they couldn't get it themselves out.
And that was actually very good by Machi to kind of spot that opportunity and really capitalize on it. Looking to do the same now, Kant, you can see pressuring off to the side here. And they're just kind of keeping DeToNator a little bit locked down here. Oh dear. Right on top of the healers. He's straight onto Sabagod once again. Doesn't quite close it out, but he's just wasting their time. And this is only one member. They do get a good trade back though. So unless Machi converts some kills here quickly, they might be a bit of a hard spot. And Rai ends up too deep. So this is the opening now for DeToNator. And yeah, Rai actually really needed to back off there.
That was a little bit awkward because Kant already died, and then Rai decided to come back and try and save his players. 4 members alive for Machi. Kant's on his way back from the respawn room as well. Big commit out of DeToNator. They're looking to win.
They're really going for it, but Kiyomi's committed this Transcendence as well now. But Sayhadi, look, he was still alive. They did lose Anakin in that, but he's able to clean up a bit with that tactical visor. DeToNator just had more to go off in that fight. And yeah, like I said, Kant getting picked was bad news. Ryan needed to back off well before he did. He paid for it with his life, and they're going to lose the point cap over.
Yeah, and it's going to be a little bit of a delay here, but ultimately Kant and Rai will die again, so it's a bit of an awkward timing for the two DPSs. If they die and respawn quickly enough, or rather if the tanks and supports stay alive long enough, then the DPSs have the opportunity to actually retake. But because the tanks and supports died again, the DPSs just come in with no support and they just get eliminated. So, I mean, 2 quick deaths for both Rai and Kant. It's like you spawn, you die.
Yeah, that was quite a botched execution out of Machi, to be frank with you. The self-destruct does go wide with, out of Yoshiharu, so there's now a bit of an opening by Machi. Going to get aggressive early Transcendence here out of Sabagod. They're really looking to aggress now and close out kills, but if they don't, which they haven't yet, then this is not going to pay off. Right now going to go on the aggressive, looking first for the Lucio. Able to close that one off, now looking to get over the point itself. Machi are doing nicely in this one. If they can finish off these 2 tanks, they really need to get Sensei. Again. They haven't quite closed him out, and they're finally maybe going to get him, but they're struggling. D-Crown actually gets picked off. Sensei lives, and DeToNator, they're still on this one. The DPS was still alive and all that, and Machi just didn't get enough coming out of their ultimates there.
And that's the problem, because Machi lost both the DPSs. Kant and Rai fell down early again. DeToNator, however, Anakin and Sayhat, they both lived. And of course, in a 3v3 situation, one team has a Tracer, and the Soldier's definitely there too. You got the damage output. Machi does not, no way they were going to be able to win that. DeToNator, I like this because Sayhati's on his best pick. Anakin's a decent Tracer as well. He's just good across the board, so this is now a strong-looking DeToNator squad.
It really is, and honestly, I don't feel this Genji is doing much for Rai. I feel like he's either over-aggressing or under-aggressing, to be completely frank, and it's costing them. It's costing them a lot. Finally able to get on the back line, but that is a dive driven by D-Crown, and already they lose Kant. Rai is in trouble. Thankfully, they're able to make some space for themselves with no talk using the self-destruct, but Rai is still in deep shot there. Again, too deep. I mean, it feels like he was close to his team, sure, but he did not respect that Sayhati was still alive. They do manage to take down Sayhati, and honestly, D-Crown kind of chucks the team on his back there to let them get the recap.
Absolutely. At least Winston's got a big back, though. So there it is. Machi do come out on top of the fight, but they are behind on progress, and it's been pretty scrappy. The Machi that played Hong Kong Attitude, I believe, would have taken a lot more control of this game so far. This is not looking as clean as that team, but it is also a team that's kind of playing around a substitution.
Look at how low Rai's ultimate charge is, by the way. It was just down to about 50% before, and this is a Rai that didn't even ult last fight. Very early aggression out of DeToNator. Was maybe a bit too quick a call there. Sabagod trying to go aggressive with the Transcendence, but if you make that call, you really had to convert kills quickly. And there wasn't even Sabagod with the Transcendence, actually. It was only Sensei with the ultimate. That was actually Kiyomi's Transcendence, my apologies. But in any case, Machi still had this one on lockdown. DeToNator kind of struggling to get on this, trickling in. Anakin was still there, but his team was not. Everyone is in Sayhate's sights, but they're getting blocked off, and he won't get onto the point.
I gotta really respect, Machi did a great job of getting those chase kills towards the end of the second to last fight. They managed to kill Sayhate, they managed to kill a couple of other members, and you just see all the Machi players just flooding on through the flank towards the spawn, almost getting a spawn camp, and because they got, the timing was good enough that by the time those DeToNator members respawned, well, half of them were alive and half of them were still respawning. The ones that are alive had to run at the point. They died, and the ones respawning, well, they had no teammates. So, well set up by Machi to take the final moments of that game.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, when the dives were driven by D-Crown, they were actually putting them off quite nicely. I feel when Rai and Kant were trying to do just the work themselves, they were often mistiming a little bit. They didn't look too clean. But look, this is also just the very first map of the very first game with Rai being back. So, yeah, look, there are still going to be some kinks to iron out. You've got the pressure of being on the stage, and I do think it will be uphill from here.
I have to have a look as well. You know, Rai's Genji still has a few question marks on that one. I'd like to see his sort of progression through this as well. We haven't talked about Sensei too much either. I'd like to see what he sort of brings to this team. Nice knockoff.
That is a great bump by Resio, and D-Crown was able to get past Sayhate enough to close out on the supports. Now, Machi are looking to close this one out, and that was actually very well set up by Rai and Kant. They were on the backside of that one so that they could kind of pincer these DeToNator members between them and D-Crown. Very nicely executed.
A little bit risky by No Talk, almost losing mech. That would have been pretty difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, that would have been a bit of a disaster for Machi after having a really nice sort of, again, chase kill onto fleeing DeToNator members. It just really staggers out the respawns and also gives you a lot of ult charge. So now Machi are definitely a lot better setup than they were previously on the on Shrine, that is, at least.
Rai actually had to go for quite an early deflect there because he nearly lost his life. He will have it up in just a second, so they are going to be fine. But there was a bit of a window for DeToNator, hasn't been capitalized on. Now Machi looking to go on the aggressive again. Once again, now the dive driven by D-Crown as the sound barrier comes out. Kiyomi the only one not actually covered by it, but it doesn't matter. It flags the aggression, and they just really don't give DeToNator any room to breathe there. there. That was very, very well done. Very, very quick.
Absolutely, and Anakin actually got the first ultimate of the game. He had a pulse spot, but no opportunity to get that done. So D-Crown kind of carrying the team on his shoulders just a little bit. Again, good execution, good jump in that initially allowed him to A, get his own kill, and B, then Machi got the further convert kills on 2 other members. Did it a full reset, almost 60, or sorry, just 50% now behind in terms of progress. They've got a lot to catch up on.
Yeah, and the thing is, look, D-Crown kind of leading the charge on these dives isn't actually a bad thing by any measure, you know? It's not that like, oh, he's carrying because the others aren't pulling their weight. This is how, you know, this dive can well be executed, and here's the aggression now out of Rai once again. Opened up by D-Crown as he gets the pressure into this room. They're going to be able to pop the mech as well. And then just kind of leave the Diva be. Anakin throwing the ultimate out there, did catch Kiyomi, but that doesn't really gain them anything. And they just lose an ultimate for it. Yoshiharu has to take the dive. And Machi once again, now they're looking a lot more comfortable with this dive.
Yeah, it's a 1-for-1 trade in terms of ultimates, but I think you'll take that if you're Machi, because DeToNator need the ultimate's worth a lot more because they need it for the retakes. Machi only having to use 1 ultimate to get a team fight win. I mean, still sitting extremely pretty. They got stall tools extremely well, good defensive tools from Kiyomi as well, and then they've got offensive tools in Kant. So I mean, Machi are well set up to win again.
They absolutely are. Here now is the aggression once again out of Machi. NoTalk creating a chunk of space, and they force out all the ultimates from DeToNator. No one's getting bonked off the edge there, and Kant already getting the trade kill back onto Yoshiharu with the stick. Means, honestly, that self-destruct doesn't really do much for DeToNator. Sensei hasn't really found anything yet. He is getting on top of Kiyomi, but he can't even commit to it, and the rest of the team, with Sensei not there to block, and Yoshiharu dead, is getting absolutely smacked down. Machi is low, but they've still got the members. They can keep going to this one. Sure, the point's gone over, but that was just Machi taking a breather, repositioning, and now they come back in with a positional advantage, back on top of the point. Overtime is ticking down. Yoshiharu trickling in now for the team, but you can try and sit in the corner with that up, but that corner isn't actually on the point, and they do lose it.
Actually, nicely corner trapped Yoshiharu in that as well, just denying him from actually contesting. And once again, the timing of Machi's setup for the final fight was they won the final fight at a sort of timing window where DeToNator couldn't actually respawn quickly enough to contest properly. So you see Yoshiharu, he should have been able to get that, to get the actual overtime, but wasn't really able to get on the point. He's just kind of stuck there in the corner. And that might have been DeToNator's opening in, but at the same time, they're still respawning, they're still trying to regroup, and they just really split. They never had an opportunity to actually get a good recontest on that final fight.
And I really liked the positioning there by Machi in that final fight as well. I mean, if you ever need a case in point that sometimes the best position isn't the one on the point, then that is absolutely it, right? They actually held the ground that was better for them for that fight, while still having enough control of the point itself, even when not being directly on it. Now the aggression deep in here by Rai gets punished. They didn't quite charge in cleanly enough. D-Crown did not get the opening damage for Rai to close out kills, and now they're getting absolutely routed. That went very sour, very fast for Machi.
Actually, Machi did a great jump, and Sensei waited, so he played his Winston defensively. D-Crown played his offensively, which is kind of expected. At the same time, neither of those two plays between Rai and D-Crown could actually secure a kill. They both then died. Can try to save the fight. He died as well. So that was actually pretty well defensively played by DeToNator.
Absolutely true, yeah. But here we go. The strike back now as Anakin finds himself a little too deep. They're looking to get aggressive. Saihari, don't be fooled. This is not favorable positioning. Sure, he's untouched, but he's actually trapped in here, and he's trapped in here with his team, who are getting picked off member by members. They lose now. Sabagot on the retreat. Yeah, he is getting a lot. And once again, look, Saihari, sure, he's not dying. No one's even hitting him at all, but he can't hit anything back, and Machi get the regrab.
Well, this is kind of like a repeat of what we saw in that first fight. This time around, though, DeToNator still hiding in that room. Unfortunately for them, NoTalk's able to get the kills where D-Crown and Rai could not in that initial fight. So DeToNator trying the same thing again, or rather maybe enforcing the same thing again. Saihate couldn't get anything done because his shots would just go straight into Matrix.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like I said, sometimes it doesn't matter if the soldier is uncontested, because if they don't have sightlines, if they can't land shots, then it doesn't even matter. They're a non-factor. It's a 5 versus 6. Here now, Pulse Bomb out from Kant is enough to help pop Yoshiharu out of the mech. That is a good opener for them now. They need to try and get onto these DPS members. Sensei in a lot of trouble, does get picked off at the back end, and already Machi in control of this fight. No trade kills to come through for DeToNator.
That was an awkward contest from DeToNator because half their team was stuck inside that top room. The other half of the team actually committed, so Sensei was out in the open. And what was it? Yoshiharu lost his mech down the bottom as well, or actually inside the room. So it was like a 6v3, and then the other members from DeToNator tried to come out of the room, realized, oh, actually my team's here, we can't do this. Now they're going to have to go for a regroup. They had a fantastic start. They actually got a decent amount of ultimates, so maybe a good contest is what they're going to be able to do here.
Maybe, and they should be able to get aggressive, but this is early moves by Machi. They're not going to waste any time. Kiyomi with that down. They had to convert kills, but they're kind of running into this pulse bomb here. Good reaction by DeToNator to kind of back up, take a bit of space while they could, and now Machi actually have to commit more to the fight, lest they just kind of lose it. The sound barrier out, and Notor's going to lose the mech. He's going to use the self-destruct to try and create some space, but they're losing their members anyway, so it's not going to matter. DeToNator absorbing it all and managed to force a ton out of Machi before getting this grab through. Very nicely reacted to.
That's actually a lot of kills for DeToNator, which is great because they spent a couple of ultimates. Machi, I feel, pulled the trigger a little bit too quick. Yeah, you went Transcendence, and you didn't actually counter anything with the Transcendence. It was just a super aggressive offensive play. Ended extremely quickly as well, and then DeToNator said, well, your Transcendence is gone, now it's our time to get some kills, and that's exactly what they did.
Yeah, and that was Machi just kind of wanting to close out the game there and then. I can respect that, but now they're in a bit of a tough spot. Good aggression, though, to catch Saihati and Dodloff at the top. Not really respecting the quick dive that can come out of Rai there. I'm surprised he didn't really back up, and now, having just lost the point, Machi are poised to regain it, and I don't think DeToNator are going to be in a good position to contest this.
They're actually in a better position than they were previously, so now at least they got the 10 seconds to regroup with the remaining members. They should be running in now. Sabagod's going to have to come in a little bit late, but the other 5 should be able to get in on time.
They should, but if they can get a couple of opening picks here, Machi, then they are well poised. But here's a good call by DeToNator going in aggressively with the sound barrier on. Yoshiharu catches Kiyomi, and there hasn't been trades back yet for Machi as Rai loses his life. They're still on the point. Kant is trying to do all the work, but he's only one guy. They don't have any healers either, and now the tanks are all alone. They're just going to have to take this one on the chin, not commit any more ultimates, and unfortunately they did already give a few over. The cap will go back in the way of DeToNator, losing a few members on the back end, so Machi will still get an opportunity to re-engage.
DeToNator actually kept that rather slowly, so Machi have a lot more time to regroup for this. They have time in terms of progress anyway. DeToNator now cannot lose anything. 3 ultimates, they're going to have to rotate extremely efficiently. The big one was Sensei. How is he going to use a Primal Rage? Because that's their biggest stall tool. If they can make sure they can get a full respawn wave out of the Primal Rage, DeToNator should be able to hold on for dear life.
And that's the thing, they do at least have the ultimates up, now getting this Transcendence just now. Early self-destruct actually to try and create some positioning. Forcing out the Transcendence from Kiyomi is a good way to start, but now there's enough ultimates up for Machi. This is a very early Primal Rage out of Sensei. They're not going to use it to stall, they are trying to use it for the fight, but it's not doing enough. Yeah, and there we go. Notorg is going to have to commit the self-destruct, but again it creates space, and it is Machi getting the kills through. Saihati doesn't find anything. And I feel like they committed all of their ultimates in the wrong order. That was so higgledy-piggledy. Tag buys the last Primal Rage first. The fight goes over the way of Machi. They're going to take this 3-0.
Well, I understand why DeToNator did what they did, because Saihati, you see from his point of view, he had the tag visor, he had the positioning, but he couldn't use it because Transcendence from Kiyomi was in the way. He was waiting for that to finish. Then he was waiting for the angles again, and by the time he was ready, 2 of his members were dead. Comes in with the tag visor, he just dies immediately as well. This is going to be a massive boop kill on the Shrine, I believe. That's actually on Sanctum. He got a lot of boop kills.
This is that very, very first one actually, and that was the boop that took out Saihati, so there you go.
Well played. I think Rissi actually yesterday had a massive one on against Hong Kong.
Yeah, he got like 3 with 1 boop, and it wasn't play of the game.
What's going on with that?
Jeff, please.
Genji's sword. Nah. Let's watch that. Yeah. So that's that. Machi 1-0, but I gotta say it's not a super clean 1-0. It was, or rather 3-0 on the Nepal series. It was kind of hard fought, and you got to give credit to DeToNator, but from DeToNator's point of view as well, a lot of things kind of weren't in line for them. It just looked scrappy from both ends, and Machi had the right idea. Some of their finishing fights on both Shrine and Sanctum were really good because timing-wise, they had it so that DeToNator were always going to be scrambling. And that's why on Village, DeToNator actually got the retake at the last moment because, you know, they actually were able to regroup properly.
They actually had the time to do it. For once, So that was kind of interesting on the whole. I do actually feel like Machi struggled a lot on the first one, but they were still able to get it over the line and then did actually look better from that point onwards. I think one of the key things to note there, though, is DeToNator reacted to most of the moves Machi made very well, but Machi still came out the better of the two because on the whole, when it counted for DeToNator to execute aggressively, they actually weren't as good as when they had to execute defensively. Now that kind of sucks for Control. That's going to make it really tricky as well now moving on to Hybrid because you want to have a good offense and a good defense. I know that sort of goes without saying, but if your defensive execution is decent, look, maybe you can get a full hold, but you won't be able to get a cap if they do get a cap through and your defense isn't quite good enough. I know that's quite conjectural, but this still doesn't look too promising for DeToNator, I feel, even though actually they made some quite good plays.
One of the good plays, or one of the sort of things they did, I felt did quite well, was they dealt with the aggression from Machi in certain moments rather well. Sometimes no, but a lot of times actually yes.
Yeah.
So one of the good times was, for example, the opening fight of Village, where D-Crown and Rai jumped in. They both got punished pretty heavily for that because they couldn't clean up kills. Second one was Kiyomi ran in with the Transcendence team following behind him. DeToNator like, we'll back up, wait for this to finish, bam, and then we pull the trigger ourselves and get the sort of get that nice counter aggression in there. So that's something they do quite well. The problem with that also is it does seem like Machi always has the initiation, and DeToNator are always second to pull the trigger. Because they're always second to pull the trigger, that means it's more up to Machi making a mistake on their initiation rather than it is DeToNator trying to punish properly. So Machi has to not do well with their initiation for DeToNator to then do well on their counter aggressive play. So yeah, that's something that DeToNator, it's good, but on the other hand, they need moments where they can be at their first to pull the trigger too.
One positive thing that DeToNator can take away from that, though, I will say, is actually that was what lost it for them on Sanctum, when Machi was able to pull the trigger aggressively, and it was working. DeToNator weren't really reacting quite right. And then on Village there, they actually were, and it did look good at quite a few moments. It was probably, in a way, the closest one that came to actually getting a map for themselves. Unfortunately then, like I said, when it came to actually holding the point and having those kinds of fights, being the proactive team, they just didn't quite seem to have it there. They had opportunities to cycle ultimates. I feel like they did things in odd orders. They pulled out things at strange times. And it just kind of created this domino effect where Machi were kind of given every opportunity to take the fight and run with it. And of course Machi are going to do that. It doesn't even matter which opportunity they take as long as they take one of them. So DeToNator did adapt over the course of the series, but there are still things to fix.
And I like that DeToNator take the proactive approach, because usually the team that takes a proactive approach has the better opportunities. They have fate in their own hands. It's up to them to win the game, and it's not up to the other team to make a mistake there. You decide what the play is, and then you got to execute your own play, and that's kind of it. And when Machi did that well, we look at Village again, because this is where Machi had good times with their initiation and kind of bad engaged as well. The good ones was when D-Crown locked 3 of the DeToNator members behind that top right section in the house, while the other 3 DeToNator members were sort of outside playing, and that's kind of like, well, that's good initiation because you just blocked off half the team.
That's a 3 versus 5.
3 versus 6, 3 versus 5. Even 3 versus 6, because D-Crown turned around after getting the mech. So I mean, there it is. Great plays, and it's up to them to really get it done. Now we're going to be going to Kings Row, DeToNator's pick as well.
I do actually quite like this. They had a decent showing on Kings Row against AHQ not too long ago. Actually, they had quite a decent showing, if I'm not mistaken, yesterday. Or am I thinking of... At any rate...
yes.
Based on what we've...
Machi did play at least... It was Hong Kong Attitude that played Kings Row, actually.
That did happen. I thought there was a... But in any case, I suppose the more important thing here is I feel like this is a good call in light of what we've just been saying about Nepal, and that they have actually been able to react to Machi's aggressive plays quite well. When you're on the defense, that sets you nicely for being able to potentially get a first hold. That is what I imagine DeToNator will be looking for here. And they have the opportunity to take the first defense as well, which would mean if they did first hold, they would only need to cap a third. And also, I feel Kings Row lends itself to being able to set up defensively at other points along the map. There will still be question marks about their offense, but they can set themselves up to have an easy offense.
Absolutely, I think Machi looked like the better offensive team right off the get-go. If you just look at the way Control was played, again, always proactive, DeToNator always having to be responsive, always have to react properly, and sometimes they reacted well, other times they didn't. But if you're proactive, you have fate in your hands. If you're reactive, you're kind of depending on the other team to also make a mistake there, and for yourself to be able to react properly. So
yeah, absolutely. I don't think we're going to see anything all that odd here as well, by the way. One thing I would like to see, though, at least maybe on Machi's defense, I would like to see Rai get back onto that soldier. I really do feel he's a strong soldier player. I actually think he is maybe a little too aggressive at the wrong times on the Genji. Doesn't quite seem to balance when to go in and when to just kind of hold back. Sometimes doesn't quite complete the retreat to his team, gets punished for it. There is a lot of issues, I feel, with this Genji play, as much as sometimes it is coming off. He is not quite filling Nona's boots yet. And I would like to see him actually just go to something I feel he can play better than Nona's.
I was going to mention that as well, because something that Nona's has kind of set a precedent for is on his team and just kind of across the board, he's become one of the more consistent Genjis where he's in a bit of a known quantity. You know what you get out of him when he plays Genji. And that's why they stick him on Genji so much, because I like to think he actually prefers Genji. I mean, there was a moment there, I believe in one of the interviews with Machi, they actually said, you know, you swap Nona's or Nuns played 70
They basically said, yeah, why are you still running Genji?
And it's like, well, he prefers playing Genji, and you can actually see that as well. And for Rai, it does look more like a forced pick rather than Rai is a fantastic Genji. Maybe Soldier is a better pick for him, and that would be something Machi should tap into.
And that's the thing. I mean, you kind of touched on this at the top of the series. You know, it's on to Rai to kind of fill the space rather that has been made by taking Nuns off for now. But that might not actually be the right approach for Machi. The right approach may, in fact, be to kind of shuffle the whole team up so that they can tap into Rai's strengths. Otherwise, why would you run him over Nuns? So I want to actually see them try that. I mean,
there are reasons.
There are reasons. But at any rate, I do actually want to see them try and play that way, try and play more around Rai, rather than just having the other Nuns.
The other thing with DeToNator as well is, on the topic of DPS, is their DPS duo is interesting to me because Saihate, at least so far, has been a player that has kind of needed to be stuck on to just Soldier.
This is interesting.
He has to kind of just play Soldier because it's his best pick, because Tracer's kind of not really there. And his Tracer would get stopped pretty hard.
His Tracer is hitting.
The thing is, Anakin is just good at everything. You almost want Anakin to play Genji. You want Anakin to just about play all the heroes.
You want 6 Anakins.
Unfortunately, Saihate has to play the Soldier, so Anakin has to play the Tracer. And it almost felt like Anakin's stuck on the Tracer. I don't know.
Well, his first move out the gate for DeToNator, and very interestingly, this is what I was noting before. They've opted to attack first. They're not opting to defend first. Really, wow, nearly catching out Ryan there. That would have been absolutely disastrous for this defense. And also, to that end, Machi are going to go ahead, not run the Soldier on defense. They're keeping Rai on the Genji for now. And already the dive is coming in onto D-Crown. Rai does make something happen out of it, though, as they get aggressive in response, and they do make it work. D-Crown does not go down. That was really, really nicely done. Well reacted to kind of punish DeToNator going a bit too hard on D-Crown.
And this is one of the strengths of Machi. Again, they're showing us why they're so good at this aggressive style of play. They play a super heavy dive here. We look at the actual lineup here. The only thing that's not aggressive is the fact they're running Ana over Lucio, but that kind of works out anyway because D-Crown and Rai go so deep. The fact that you're still running Rai and Genji and you're still running a Zenyatta on this defense here, you want to go super aggressive.
Yeah, Rai is looking a lot better than last time, and there you go. Yeah, the deflate, and then no hesitation to get in on this one. That means he has a Dragon Blade now available, and a second time in a row, this counter dive, this very aggressive defense from D-Crown and Rai really pays off, and suddenly he is starting to look great on this Genji.
Yoshiharu really wants to reset this mech. At this point, you almost just want to run back to your own spawn. It'd be a little bit better for your team. And Machi are fairly well ahead now, fairly well established on this defense. Already 2 fights ahead of DeToNator. DeToNator haven't really gotten any trades. It's not like DeToNator have been getting a good ult charge. They're not. Anakin's even going on to the Genji now. So kind of what I was talking about. You almost don't want Anakin to be stuck on the Tracer because we know him as a good Genji player.
So howdy onto this Tracer as well. They've realized that they actually need to be aggressive themselves as well. They can't take these patient setups because Machi are too aggressive for that. And that's the opening that they're after. Rai is actually struggling to close things out, and they managed to pick him up as well. They're able to keep the team topped off through this Transcendence, and suddenly they have the numerical advantage. They're looking solid. Yeah, the Nano Boost is there onto D-Crown, and they do get a lot of leverage out of that with this Primal Rage as well. The respawns do favor DeToNator, but if too many members die, that's not really going to count for much. Self-destruct is just going to force Machi back a little bit, but it's not going to pick up any kills. Gotor can throw his one out as well if he would like to. I believe he has indeed. Creates more space for them now on the defense as their members start to come back in. Rai is back here. No Dragon Blade available anymore, but he does get the pressure down at least. They need to get a pick through, though, if they want to secure this defense.
They need a lot more because they don't have ultimates. Anakin does. He's going to swing up the blade now. Rai going down super early is a big problem for Machi.
Yeah, a little bit too deep in that one. Really almost getting a little bit desperate to get that pick that I was saying to secure the defense. And yeah, punished very hard by Anakin. Very well read by DeToNator. Holding on adequately throughout that fight. And even when Machi looked kind of poised to swing it back in their favor, DeToNator, they played that very measuredly, I feel. They didn't just run and hide, nor did they stay too long. They balanced that very finely.
And in fact, I really like the change onto this aggressive play because, like you said, they realize they need to be more proactive. This is how they're going to be more proactive. And suddenly Anakin gets the first kill of their team for the entire game. And this is what I'm talking about. Anakin, you need him to be playing a power pick like this.
Good dive by D-Crown, but Anakin does answer back. They have still a little bit of space to play. They don't quite have the same kind of dive because Sensei's out of the picture, but Machi do respect that they cannot overextend here and will back off. DeToNator to get the payload moving.
This is a little bit awkward for Machi as well because Kiyomi's actually on Lucio, Rusty is on the Zenyatta, and the reason that happened is because Kiyomi was originally playing the Ana, so if you want a Lucio, he's the one that actually swapped off because they wanted to keep the Zenyatta. Two players have to really not in their preferred role, so something much you got to balance out too.
I mean, luckily they do have the flexibility on those supports. That is an assumed thing at this level, but you're right. You know, it's both their second favorites rather than being their first favorite. But Rai getting nothing out of this Dragon Blade. Good self-destruct out of Yoshiharu to force him off to the side, and then DoToNator going on the aggressive. Machi really struggling to mount a solid defense here. It feels like they're kind of just throwing tools at this to see if they can kind of get something through. Now going to be throwing out the Transcendence as well, but the payload is only just sort of being contested. Saihade is still largely unopposed here onto the side, and the momentum is still in favor of DeToNator. Plus, they're getting these picks through. Machi, they're just not really getting anything.
Well, it's the second time that Rise unfortunately had a 0 kill with his Dragon Blade, and second time in a row that Sabergod's had Transcendence ready. So in terms of what's happening for DeToNator, they're able to charge quickly enough, and you'll see Sabergod will have another Transcendence before Rai gets his Dragon Blade, so they're able to time every single ultimate that they need to counter Machi with sort of perfectly, and Amikin's doing so much work with Saihate on the side as well. Both of those players even have ultimates to go through. This is going to be a hard defense for Machi to complete.
I mean, we said Machi felt like a stronger offensive team, but actually DeToNator are playing this so well. The rotations are good. The aggression is measured. And like I said, it almost feels like Machi just throwing ultimates because they have to. Yeah, Rai already down and out, but the count means Amikin gets to go aggressive. Good sound barrier to mean he doesn't get too much for it, and he will lose his life, unfortunately. They get a return kill onto Restia. Machi do have the favored respawns here, so DeToNator do need to close out kills fast, but they are actually doing that. Kanta's kind of forced away off to the side, and they don't actually have ultimates to commit to this to start closing the fight out in their favor. They do get a good one onto Sabergod. Oh, they don't quite trade back. There we go. No, they do just get canned on the back end of that, and they should be able to start getting this back underway. Actually, no, hold on. DeToNator. Sorry, no, my brain got flipped around. Yes, they push it through.
Fantastic work. There we go. We got there in the end, and DeToNator got there in the end as well. They do manage to get the cap final. Like I said, Machi were going to struggle to be able to hold on to that one. They did bleed a number of ultimates out of DeToNator, so that's pretty good. I think Saihate actually charged up a second pulse bomb in the middle of that fight while not dying, so he's actually doing a decent job in Tracer so far.
I will say, look, there was a DeToNator once upon a time that would not have stuck around in that fight, even though they still had every opportunity to win it. And there's also a DeToNator that would have stuck around and failed to close it out. So this is a much more confident-looking squad, and that is really starting to shine through. Losing DoToNator does flag a bit of a retreat here, but unless they lose someone else, they should be able to get out fine and come in for a re-engage.
And just to speak to that, I think, you know, having the additional sensei on the team with the shot calling that he sort of brings on here, this guy was the coach of DeToNator, an original player turned coach and now back into player. The additional shot calling, the leadership, I think adds a lot of weight.
Ooh, this is a bit deep for Amikin. He's sort of getting around with this one, but now the team is back here. Amikin, able to stay alive through that, has actually paid off for them, but that was very dicey. Double Transcendence out now, as we see right on the top side. Looking for something, going to go with the commit as they create the space with the self-destruct. This is a lot of ultimates used for Machi, though. Pulse Bomb out and does just catch DoToNator, despite the Transcendence being there. Amikin does lose his life, unfortunately, after trading back against Kiyomi. Rai not really finding much himself, though. The kills are still coming up, Machi, luckily, and DeToNator don't quite push that one through.
So this is about where most teams would be expected to get a stabilized hold, and Machi are one of those teams that do in fact get that. They still haven't really changed the Kiyomi Restia situation. They're going to stick to this. They're going to have to, because ultimates, the rotation is going to get really blundered if they sort of change anything now. So why not? Both teams are going pretty heavy dive, and it's interesting that for the most part, DeToNator has been more successful with their dive.
This is a very quick commit out of DeToNator. Oh, Kanta already getting onto the backside. Now they close out into Sabergod as well. Very good work by him. Just honestly single-handedly shut that fight down before it had really started, and DeToNator unfortunately committed ultimates to that as well, so they're going to continue to be stopped up.
Well, they don't have any more opportunities to have fights like those. 20 seconds left onto the board. No ultimates. They go up against 3. Amikin's even going to pull out the McCree himself. So whatever's happening on the Genji, it's not happening anymore. He wants to be able to counter up maybe Rise Genji a little bit more effectively.
Or maybe shut down Kand as he dives the back line, but they don't have the ultimates to go on in this one. They weren't even able to charge him up in the last one. Great stick. Oh, and he runs it back into Amikin. This fight is over before it even began. Unless something crazy comes up, but DeToNator not going to happen. Very good target selection out of Machi as they train down each and every member of DeToNator who barely even got a chance to touch the point, and they shut them out before they can get the third point.
Wow, this is like watching Sanctum and Shrine all over again. The timing of... even DoToNator's just kind of scratching his head. Is like, how did that happen? And that is a play that wins you a match, because timing-wise, again, you're able to get the kills right in the last minute, or right in the last few seconds to be more accurate. That stops any sense of reinforcements from DeToNator to actually contest their cut. So DeToNator now, for quite a few times in a row, just cannot even get the overtime when they want to.
Tell you what though, Machi were playing a very aggressive defense and DeToNator really were reacting to it well. That was why the payload was able to get such good distance. It got stopped up a little bit here and there, but so it wasn't like the payload was constantly rolling and Machi were getting flattened, nor was it like Machi were really stopping up DeToNator and then suddenly DeToNator were able to break it. It was this constant chipping of momentum and chipping forward for DeToNator. So if DeToNator can mount a more solid defense, if they can actually do the same thing they did on their offense and react to Machi's aggression the same way, they should actually be able to bleed down the clock more than what Machi did to them.
I certainly hope so anyway. You'd like to see how DeToNator are going to play this defense in particular. They're going to run aggressive again or not, are they not? And what I actually noticed out of DeToNator is as soon as they made the switches, and the big switch for me was moving Anakin onto the Genji instead. And the output was kind of astronomically different.
It was immediate.
And immediately is a good word because he got that first pick, and that first pick onto, I believe it was at the time, Ristia on the Zenyatta, that really opened up DeToNator because they went from no picks at all in any of the fights to suddenly, here's the first pick in a fight. That's when you're going to snowball. That's when DeToNator really set the standard for their attack.
I'm going to opt to Soldier on the defense here, so we aren't unfortunately going to see Anakin's Genji once again, but Machi here, I wonder if they're going to stick to this Widowmaker for Kyomi because they have done this before. No, it doesn't look like that's going to be the case, but they are running Rai back on Soldier.
And they're also running Saihate still on the Tracer, and they're running Anakin on the Soldier as well, so usually you'd be seeing the other way around, Saihate playing Soldier. So the fact that they're sticking to this, something's going right for Saihate or something's going right for Anakin on that Soldier, on the other pick.
And it can absolutely be, you know, a bit of a two-part thing there. Good counter dive in by Sensei, but he needs to be careful that he doesn't lose his life. No one has actually contested Rai here, and they are having a bit of a hard time with this. They're going to have to cede a lot of space. Machi, they get themselves a bit of a window.
It's going to be an interesting 1v1 duel as well. Cand almost lost that one, so, you know, again, well played by Saihate at the end, and Machi is still looking for an opening here, and for a team that's very aggressive, here we go, they finally have to move it.
There we go, the pressure is very unrelenting out of Machi. They're kind of forcing DeToNator into this corner, and as Saihate moved out to try and break it, he found himself getting shot in the back by Rai. That signals the move to go aggressive because no one can get around the backside of Machi for that aggressive move. They catch DeToNator out completely, get the payload underway in record time, just about.
And a perfect Primal Rage as well. It really says something when D-Crown can get an ultimate before either of the Tracers on either team.
Yeah.
It's usually a Tracer that will get the first ultimate, but D-Crown got the Primal Rage, uses it in a closed space. I mean, double kill, easy peasy for the dude.
And that was DeToNator not reacting to Machi's aggression like we had seen them before. Immediately now, Anakin back onto this Genji, and you almost wonder, look, if this is what they feel they need to go onto if things aren't working, why don't they just go onto it in the first place?
Well, they want to do the double hit scam properly, but unfortunately, Anakin's just too...
Oh, good
it has to be
sound
too
barrier.
static.
Sound barrier saving Rai's life there, and it gives Machi an opportunity to counterattack, and they make that pay off for them. Absolute dividends coming out there as Machi are going to absolutely flatten DeToNator now on this aggression, and that was on the verge of going the way of DeToNator had they been able to close out that kill on Rai.
The good news is DeToNator do get a couple of trades, and so eventually I would say by the time this cap reaches the second checkpoint end, DeToNator should be able to get a pretty good hold because the ultimates do come online, particularly good stalling options as the cart gets into a position where DeToNator's spawns suddenly become favored.
But I tell you what, the pressure is really on. I mean, we haven't actually seen them mount a proper defense yet, so as much as, you know, they should be able to do it at that point, they haven't been able to do it at other points where they could have potentially been favored for the defense. Like on that first point, we'll have to see how they can go. Now, that's a good start.
Super early.
Right down early, and the Transcendence comes out maybe a little bit too late. Trade back onto Sabergod does help, and DeToNator's only defensive tool, Sound Barrier, has now been used. So this is now a pretty flat fight in terms of who could come out on top, but if they can close out a few more here, DeToNator, they can close it out, but if they don't before Rai rejoins this, it's going to go pear-shaped. They force out the self-destruct, and the mech out of Yoshiharu is able to get back in it, but they're in a bit of a rocky situation here still, DeToNator. They have an opportunity to stabilize thanks to the respawns, and closing out Kant goes a long way towards that. Looks like Machi will just retreat.
Well played. Well played by DeToNator, and this is sort of exactly what I'm talking about as well. Because they killed Ryan, the respawn distance gets quite long. He doesn't run back in time, and even if he does, he doesn't run back in the same positioning that he kind of wants there. So Anakin, the second time that we're seeing immediately switching onto Genji, immediately showing results, immediately pushing DeToNator towards the place where they can actually win. And I don't know, that was a really unfortunate engage. This looks like a lot better though for Anakin.
Very early indeed, but he has to deflect and then retreat, and he doesn't really find much. Gets Kiyomi on the back end of that, and actually they catch Rai. Good dive by Sensei. Anakin will lose his life for it, but this has stalled up Machi. Unfortunately though, DeToNator are now going to be very lean on ultimates for this next fight.
They are, well, Machi are pretty stacked up. I mean, Rai has been keeping onto the tech devices for a decently long time now. Kant gets pushed back a little, so there's got to be careful in this 1v1. In fact, I think Kant actually might win if Saihachi's not too careful. Good news for DeToNator, double support ultimates means they can hold on.
There we go, very aggressive out of Machi sound barrier to start this one off as they go on the attack. Let's see what they can find. That's a good convert onto the back line, and that transcendence means no mileage. Absolutely should have altered there. And now D-Crown, with that run out, is able to go back to doing damage the more conventional way. They don't really get much in response there, only the 1 kill onto Rai, but Machi are coming out the better of this anyway. Their DPS is still largely untouched, and honestly, D-Crown is wreaking absolute havoc. Doesn't really matter that Saihati is able to get a return kill there because he is going to lose his life, and the camp is going to go through. DeToNator lose the opportunity to mount a good defense early.
And I was saying, you know, DeToNator had the options there. They had double support ultimates. They could have lived for a very long time, even dotted off the sound barrier. He just kind of died in the middle of that, so that didn't last long enough for the team at all. They have the Transcendence for the Snake's fight, but unfortunately, the cap did go through, and they're on the sort of last legs. We still got over 3 minutes. What is that? Is it 2 minutes?
That is 3 minutes
3
20
minutes and
just
20.
gone.
So, I mean, it's a long time to hold for not a long distance.
And already forced out the Transcendence as well. They can match it with their own, and they still have a couple of ultimates either online or about to come online. DeToNator are going to have to get a lot out of what they've got here as Anakin trying to make it work, but D-Crown shuts him down. He finds nothing. Payload still moving for Machi here, and DeToNator, they're running out of tools to contest with. Yoshihari will have to commit a self-destruct, but unless it finds something, it's not going to be enough, but they do find something, and they take out Kiyomi here. Sound Barrier is going to try and keep Kant in this fight a little bit longer, but unless he converts kills, it's not really going to help them. But never mind all that. No Talk gets more with his own self-destruct. And once again, the fight swings back over towards Machi. Anakin getting forced off to the side here. He is not going to be able to get anything. And now Rai is going to make this, Dragon Blade, that's what I was trying to say, work for him. Cap goes through. Machi take the win.
And DeToNator just looked like they wanted the back foot for so long. After that failed second cap defense, Sabagon holding on to ultimate, double Transcendence coming out after that. No one really getting enough kills. I mean, it was pretty even for a time being, with both self-destructs coming out, 1-for-1 trades, which was slightly unexpected. I think you were even saying, like, if this gets a kill, well, you know, he got a kill. Well, the other one won't get a kill.
Yeah,
he got
I mean, it was pretty much on Kant to get a kill, and then it wasn't even him that got it. So there you go. Right,
and no Junkin sign as well, so that's always disappointing.
Yeah, always, yeah. Well, there we go. That was this is the very first, if I'm not mistaken, defense out of Machi.
It was, yes.
Yeah, you can see Amikins was still on that soldier there. And they were playing very aggressive on the defense, and it was actually working up until the point where Anakin swapped. And I kind of touched on this. I'm surprised they didn't opt to just put Anakin on the Genji straight away if that was what was shutting down Machi's aggression best, because when you're defending, you want to shut down aggression.
It's not... They're not shutting down aggression by playing the defensive properly. They're shutting down aggression by being counter-aggressive.
By being aggressive
And that's the thing is, for DeToNator.GOLD, they're trying to set up a defense. So they're trying to have a defensive play where they actually can just rely on good soldier sort of play, good soldier tracer play where they play the reactive game a little bit better, because that is something they did quite well in Nepal. But then when Anakin goes onto the Genji, he does quite well. But that's almost a crutch as well. It's almost like when you watch Fireball and you need a Pudo to play that Genji.
Yeah.
If he doesn't...
You want 6 Apudos.
If he doesn't play the Genji, you're not having a good time. And that's kind of what DeToNator looks like as well, because Anakin and Apudo, both great Genji players for the team, both the superstar DPSs as well, and you rely so much on them to carry a decent amount of weight for the team. And as much as I can see, like, oh yeah, you put Anakin onto Genji, it also doesn't look comfortable. It looks like, oh, we have to do this again.
Yeah,
this is the only thing that works.
And
why does nothing else work?
Yeah, and that's the thing. By comparison, over the course of this tournament, we do now feel Fireball have a bit of flexibility. We do feel that actually if NZNR goes on to Genji, I mean, sure, it's not going to be as good as Apudo. That's because Apudo is a great player, but it's not going to be inadequate. It is going to be perfectly acceptable, but we're not really getting the same kind of mileage out of Saihati when he is on the thing that they wish Anakin was on. Well, it's this really tricky situation.
Well, NZNR is not going to play Genji. He's going to play Tracer. That's the other
thing.
He
has played Genji, but right now, yes, in this meta, yeah,
he's going to be good enough. He's going to be good enough that his Tracer's fine, but like that's something Fireball have overcome, but something that for DeToNator they're still working on. The biggest tell for me was their standard that they want to work. They want Saihati on Soldier to work, and they want Anakin on Tracer to maybe work. And the fact that that's not working is quite telling, because eventually, go to King's Row, they just swap. Anakin's then on the Soldier, and Saihati's then on the Tracer, and even Anakin on the Soldier doesn't work. So at this point, no matter who plays Soldier for DeToNator, that's just not working. What they want to do is they want to look at Flash Rules, Zonda and Soldier, great. They could look at Blank, Aegtar and Soldier with how their team is operating, cool, they're getting that done as well. It's working. It's exactly how you want to operate.
Even AHQ with Dizzy doing the same.
Exactly. But DeToNator just, not even a little bit of success. Whoever plays a soldier, nothing happens.
And they do actually have the ability to kind of do that. You're completely right there. Another thing on that is they really didn't put up any kind of fight on the defense there. Like, honestly, there was one that was sort of a little bit kind of protracted and drawn out just before the cap went through on the second point, and then again, arguably, before it went through on the third point. But even so, it was, it was this back and forth kind of thing. It wasn't like, yes, okay, now they're getting the kills through. Now they've found an opportunity to get a defense. It's like, okay, they have a chance, but it doesn't really look like the fight is either way just yet. And then in both situations, it still ended up falling the way of Machi.
Yeah, well, I mean, 2-0 for Machi says a lot about the scoreline so far, and Nepal was a 3-0 in and of itself. So DeToNator, I would say, struggling to get things to work, and both teams making a little bit. Both teams making substitutions. Both teams changing up their players. One more opportunity for DeToNator. 2-0 is the scoreline. Assault is the next map. We will find out what that is after this break. Welcome back to the Overwatch Pacific Championship. We're about to head into map number 3 of Machi Esports versus DeToNator.GOLD. Currently, the score is 2-0 in favor of Machi. Final opportunity for DeToNator. We're going to Assault.
We are. It is also going to be DeToNator's pick as well. No, it's not. I'm a liar. It's going to be Machi's pick. So never mind that. And I was going to say if it was DeToNator's pick, maybe they would want to go to Volskaya. That is where they actually took their map win off HQ. They do tend to just pick up these odd map wins here and there now on Assault. So, I mean, this is still the one where they can start to turn this one around. But certainly it has felt like so far, even when games have felt a little close, honestly, Machi have pushed it over the line and DeToNator have just failed to at every juncture. So you would still favor Machi for Assault here.
And that's the thing as well, is Machi, I don't feel like they're even playing super clean, because it's not like they're winning every single fight. They don't look super commanding all of the time. DeToNator have really good individual moments and really good small sort of shining lights here and there, but it's not very consistent for DeToNator. And I would say even DeToNator winning doesn't feel super consistent either. So it's DeToNator kind of losing to a Machi that doesn't look on form.
Yeah, which is, I mean, in a way, even more worrying, right? And sure, we can say, look, yeah, Machi, they got this new member out today. They got Rai, haven't had him on for a while. There are still going to be kinks to kind of iron out there. But, I mean, you would like to think that that is the Machi you have the highest chance of upsetting if you're DeToNator.
You'd think so, and I think that'd be correct as well. Right now, this is the Machi where, although they're 2-0 up, it hasn't been like a super dominant 2-0 up. It's been a 2-0 up where even when we look at Kings Row, on Kings Row and Nepal actually, both of those maps DeToNator have had very good moments where they just look great. Like, oh, this is the DeToNator really working. Anakin's on Genji, okay, now things are really working for DeToNator, but it's not enough.
Yeah, this isn't the 2-0 up that Machi had yesterday against Hong Kong Attitude. I think that's kind of, I know that sounds like a really, minor thing to kind of say there, because, I mean, sure, they still lost that series, but actually, they were leading in what was a very tight series against a very good team, 2-0 up yesterday, and this doesn't feel that same kind of convincing. And that says a lot about Machi. It also says a lot about DeToNator, who, of course, have their own new members out tonight. You can say on the one hand, this should be the best iteration of DeToNator yet, but you could say on the other hand, that means much like Machi, they have kinks to iron out, and they're still not actually getting over the line.
And they just got a new player, and it's not even like with Machi, they've had Rai the entire time. Yeah, they bench him out, but they sub him back in. They've still been scrimming with him. With the total new player, they haven't played with Sabagod all that long. Sabagod's super fresh on the team.
And they've also, like you pointed out, Sensei was actually their coach. They've brought their coach into a player role again. He did play in the past, but again, you tend to not practice a lot with your coach, even though he
doesn't scrim with them.
Exactly. Even though he's on the roster, he doesn't actually scrim with them. Sure, he sees the scrims, he probably listens into the scrims too. He's privy to all that communication, but actually practicing with the team and being a part of that communication as opposed to just kind of witnessing it so that you can then give feedback on it. They are two very, very different things. And it does feel like there are just a few places where they're not quite on the same page. They're close to, they're not chapters apart, but they're not quite on the same page.
Let's talk about this new map pick as well, because Temple of Anubis is Machi's choice, of course. I pretty much guarantee we're going to see some sort of Sombra play, likely from both teams. That DeToNator have been in that boat as well. Dololov has been picking that one up. In the past, it has been Anakin as well, so they have that option to them. And actually, when you look on Machi, it's kind of a similar story. They have picked it up primarily on Kiyomi at the same time, Kant's also been the one playing it in a lot of cases, so it could be either player.
Yeah. I wonder actually maybe if DeToNator will actually use Sabagod for it. Because the thing is, when you put Dotlov on it, you do lose Dotlov as a support. You do lose, the other flexibility you get out of him, and he is an extremely flexible support player. So I wonder if maybe part of having Sabagod here is to free up having Dotlov on that second support.
The thing is, playing Dotlov on the Ana Zenyatta support, that's the most flexible position for a support player. And usually that's the Lucio that doesn't change at all. You play Lucio, you're on the Lucio, you're just playing Lucio the whole way. So the fact that Dotlov is there does say that it's more likely that Sabagod will probably pick up the flex role on that support. In fact, if DeToNator don't feel like either player is kind of right for it, maybe then they just put Anakin back on.
Yeah,
but you're now back in the same situation where Anakin's stuck onto something that's not his best pick. We've already seen what that looks like for the team. We've already seen what that looks like in the past when Anakin plays a Sombra. It's not like he's not a bad Sombra, but he's just a way better Genji.
Yeah, exactly. And the reality is as well, look, Sombra's DPS does not compete with the other DPS heroes anyway. So if you're putting your DPS player on that Sombra and you don't have another DPS, you do lose out. You do just have less damage out, but that's why we tend to see supports doing it, because the healing you get does just barely make up for not having a healer, as much as it is quite niche in that you have to go to the health pack specifically. But look, yeah, teams have adapted to that. This all kind of goes without saying a little bit. And you don't sacrifice DPS by not running, a soldier or a Genji or even a Tracer, though that would be absolutely mind-boggling if a team opted to a Sombra over a Tracer.
I just think having the Sombra in the DPS slot is a little bit weaker than having the Sombra in the support slot anyway.
Frankly, yeah.
So unless you're on the attacking side. So what we're actually seeing a lot in Temple is you play attack Sombra and also defend Sombra now. A lot of teams do that. You don't have to, but a lot of teams are. You're also seeing a lot of Reaper now. And that was quite prevalent in the Hong Kong Attitude versus Machi series. Both teams kind of just ran the mirror thing there. And if you're on the attack, that's when you usually see someone like Kant pick up the Sombra. But if you're on defense, that's when you usually see the support player pick up the Sombra instead. So that's kind of a little bit of the difference I've noticed.
Yeah, so here's the thing as well, by the way. So Machi did actually run that attack Sombra yesterday against Hong Kong Attitude. Didn't run it on first point, like what Hong Kong Attitude sometimes do with Mango Jai, but they did run it on second point, at least at certain moments. And they did actually lose that game against Hong Kong Attitude. They drew Temple and then lost it on golden point. So I still think that says they look favored here because they drew Temple itself, and DeToNator do not look as strong as Hong Kong Attitude.
That was with Nuns as well.
Yes, but exactly, that was with Nuns, and there is still this opportunity here for DeToNator to squeak out a win.
Yeah, I would say so as well. I think DeToNator have the possibility in there. It would really come down to how they're going to play this. And already you see Sabergod's hovering over the Sombra. Could actually be the real pick here. I wouldn't actually be surprised. And Anakin on the Genji and actually Saihate on the Soldier, also a real pick possibility. And they're one of the teams that do actually bring this combination out. I have mentioned previously, Soldier and Tracer is generally the way to go. Tracer and Genji. But sometimes you do see a Soldier Genji and actually Anakin deciding, you know what, I will actually just play this, the Tracer and not the Genji here. But I actually wouldn't be surprised if he changes halfway through.
This is a little all over the place. There we go. Sensei is going to go back onto the Winston. I would have been extremely surprised if he stuck on that Widowmaker. But yeah, I do kind of prefer having the Tracer here just a little bit. I feel like the mobility just lets you wrap around the side a little bit more. And you do also have a good amount of mobility out of the Sombra. I'm curious to see if they can actually pull this off as well as Mango Jai does on Hong Kong Attitude.
The biggest thing here is actually Kanta's on the Genji and Rai is now on the Tracer. So that's a change around.
It's a change around that I'm quite happy to see as well, but good dive, good aggression to pick out Kiyomi, but the response is there, very quick, very measured, and DeToNator is still setting up this Sombra, so I feel like that was a bit of an early moment for Sensei to be diving in like that, and actually going to keep this one going, but they're kind of getting punished for it now, picking Anakin as well. They're kind of losing their DPS members here. This is becoming a little bit protracted now.
A little bit, but DeToNator getting more kills here, and this is starting to look pretty bad for Machi if they're not really able to get back in. Rai is the only player that can really do anything here. And if he goes down, I think it's all over. Kant's already on the Sombra. I think this kind of says to me that Machi are giving this one up.
Yeah. And Rai actually, even though they weren't focusing him anymore, the members of DeToNator, he did start to back up anyway. So yeah, they had obviously made the call, no, let's give this one over. And that's really interesting. Like I said, DeToNator actually committed before the Sombra was set up. So the Sombra wasn't really committed to that fight. They sort of won that in a bit of a 5 versus 6.
And now they're not even going to play the Sombra here anyway. I think what they really value is they're saying, look, Sabergod's already in here. He's already got the health pack control. We're not even going to try and do the Sombra. If we can win the next team fight, then we'll pull out the Sombra. But for now, this is the pick.
Pulse Bomb goes wide for Ryan. That was really all they had to stuff up this first move by DeToNator. DeToNator do still need to execute on this, but here now is Sabagod getting in with the EMP, trying to find the right moment, trying to find the right spot to catch as many members as possible. Has now found it. There's the commit as they get right on top of Kant. Try to force him out. They pick Ryan, but they don't quite close out on Kant. He will be able to come back in swinging. D-Crown can stall out with the ultimate as well. DeToNator, they're closing out a couple here. They might actually be able to get themselves a third off this as here comes now this tactical visor from Sayhade. They do start to close out. And it doesn't matter that Kant stayed alive for a long time because he goes down on the back end of that fight. Amakin had him trapped off to the side. DeToNator, they're poised to pick up a second third. It's just Restia. They need to get respawns in fast. They're not on the point. It goes over. DeToNator, lightning speed, 5 minutes 49. They get the second point.
That's one of the best attacks we've seen from DeToNator so far. I gotta say it's partly misplayed by Machi because they were caught in a really terrible position where this is the strength of that attack, Sombra, from keeping it on the initial attack through. So what Mango Jai is doing, it's led into DeToNator's strategy as well, and they're able to capitalize because they had that attacking Sombra right from the first point. Kant couldn't go on the Sombra. He had to change up because he knew he was playing into EMP. He knew he was late to the party for the map control and the health pack control as well. The EMP came out. A lot of teams maybe don't take good advantage of it. This time around, DeToNator.GOLD, they got the necessary kills. They didn't lose members, which was even more important because they got the way better trades. That's all they needed.
And the second fight was really interesting as well. They had the snowball opportunity. They took it, they ran with it. What they kind of did there, they pressured the DPS very, very well. They actually killed Rai, and Kant then had to spend all of his time staying alive. While that happened, the tanks were just kind of there with nothing really going on, no DPS that they were protecting. There was still an opportunity for Machi to hold on, though. We do see a lot of teams fail to close out the kills there when they had that opportunity, but DeToNator, at the exact right moment, then executed once again to take out the tanks, and by the time Kant rejoined the fight, by the time it was safe, it was pointless, it was already lost, and that was really, really well done by DeToNator.
You actually see now Ryan Kant swap their hero pick, so, I mean, the other awkward thing for Kant was, part of the reason why Ryan was on Tracer was because Kant was always going to be the one playing the Sombra, so playing Kant onto the Genji to start things off with, he then can change off onto that Sombra rather than the other way around. So the awkward thing is because he couldn't play the Sombra, he had to go onto Soldier, and that's not a pick that we usually see out of Kant. I don't even know if that's a pick that Kant really plays anyway, so I mean, that's kind of an awkward thing that Machi got themselves into, so it just really put Machi in a bad spot.
This is interesting, they're running a Sombra on the defense here as well. I actually kind of like this. I mean, they were sort of making it work. They didn't quite get a ton of mileage out of it. He wasn't able to get the EMP up too quickly on their offense, but then the offense itself was quite quick. So let's see how this goes on the defense.
I think what they were doing here is they may be kind of trying to project the offensive Sombra. If they were playing against an offensive Sombra for Machi, this would work really well because they've now hacked the health packs that Machi would have wanted.
Yeah, a bit of an over-aggressive move by Sensei. They are just barely saying, oh, never mind, Amakin gets routed, Yoshiharu's in trouble. This first point is as good as broken now. They tried to get an aggressive kind of counter dive onto Machi, but it really didn't pay off at all. Sensei dying early. I mean, they didn't actually need to go for that. They could have just waited a little bit longer, waited for Machi to be a little bit more set up in that room, and actually wait for Sabagod to get a bit more mileage out of those health packs. So DeToNator lose that point about as quickly as they took it off Machi themselves.
Well, when Machi might just get a double cap in equal sort of speed, unless Sabagod gets the EMP, which I'm expecting him to. So that's kind of the silver lining here, is although they lost the first cap pretty quickly, they do get the EMP set up super quick for the second cap. And if this is more like a second cap investment, they're investing pretty well here.
Yeah, and they're actually going to swap Sayhade over to this Reaper as well. We see a lot of this. We see this Sombra Reaper combo. Let's see if it can actually get mileage, though, because the EMP, there we go. They're able to convert the kills just in the nick of time. That is indeed mileage. And wow, Pulse Bomb as well to catch Ryan D-Crown on the retreat is big for them. That gives them a lot of ult charge as well off the back end of that fight and denies Machi from really getting any return kills, building up much ult charge of their own.
Yeah, so no snowball coming up from Machi, and DeToNator able to stabilize fairly well. The only thing they have to worry about here is slow to get the ultimates because Pulse Bomb was used 50-50 on that. Maybe they could have held on to it. There was no way Machi were going to retake anyway because they lost too many members in the initial EMP. There's not a quick enough second EMP, which is a bit of a problem.
This is now Machi going to get their opportunity to snowball right very early with this, Dragon Blade, and he's not finding much for it. Finally catching Dodlov, and the Pulse Bomb was able to take out Sensei, but they need to convert a lot more kills than this. A lot of space made by Yoshiharu. Good use of that self-destruct. Even if he loses his mech here, he's bought time for the respawns. Maybe even a cap could still come through here for Machi, but it won't be anywhere near as quick. Raya's getting a little bit pressured back, but they're getting the kills coming through now. It is once again Sensei just alone on the point, trying to stall it out for the respawn. Saihade over onto May to try and stall. And actually they're going to do it too, get it over the line at breakneck pace. They're going to be able to bleed a little bit more time here, DeToNator, but they're not going to really actually contest the point itself. And 5 minutes 49 on one side, 5 minutes 30 on the other. That is about as close as it gets.
Now, Machi were definitely cutting it pretty close. I think they would have definitely felt the pressure after losing that quickly on their initial defense. They knew they needed a quick attack as well. And for DeToNator, that initial EMP played good. Pulse Bomb, I would still say is overcommitted. They could have used the Pulse Bomb on the second defense. And what Machi did quite well was just re-attack within a decent amount of time. They saw the opening. They said, we go now, no EMP. A lot of teams actually waste that time. A lot of teams actually just squander that period. And by the time they go and the second EMP comes, because they went in so early, what was Sabagot on? 45%?
Yeah.
He's not even close.
No.
He got the EMP super late into that. Doesn't do anything. No ultimates out from DeToNator for the rest of the game either. So, I mean, and really cleanly executed.
Yeah, they didn't
Machi.
even get a single return kill on that as well. Look, there is every opportunity for them to still kind of hold this one out, get this one over the line. But this is 5.5 minutes for the first attack for Machi. They then get an extra 30 seconds if they do cap. Look, there's a very real possibility we got a double time bank here, but I feel like the pressure is more on DeToNator than it is for Machi.
Absolutely. I would say both teams so far have done a decent job of getting that first cap extremely quickly. I would also say Machi would have learned some hard lessons from that, because it was Machi also doing, I would say, kind of different stuff, like, for example, putting Raya onto the Tracer, then Kant on the Genji, then forcing Kant onto the Soldier because he couldn't play the Sombra, and that was a huge mess for Machi that I think they're going to fix.
See how it goes on the offense here. Once again, they need to make sure Sensei doesn't go too aggressive too early, but this time they balance it a little better. They pick Kiyomi Anakin to get out safely. Sensei does need to get out with his life as well, but that does look like it will happen. And this defense going a little bit better for DeToNator.
And also Anakin wasting no time, straight into the Genji. Saihate on the Tracer, he's saying, look, this is the combo we're going to run. This is probably our best DPS combo. It's time to pull out all the stops.
This is interesting as well, by the way. They have Dotlov on this Ana as well, so that's how they're opting to run their main healer here, not a Lucio.
Yeah, yep. All it really means is you lose that defensive capability because you don't have Sound Barrier, you don't have Transcendence, but you're going to rely on the utility of Ana and maybe the damage from Nano Boost to really carry the weight. EMP, of course, to do the EMP work.
Good aggressive attempt there out of Sensei, and they do actually create enough space to pop No Talk Smack. Not ideal, you kind of want to get the healers or the DPS, but look, they're still kind of forcing Machi back, and these are now all very squishy members. This actually is where Sombra's extra DPS can really help.
They actually lose health pack control though, so as far as DeToNator, you know, they're running the Sombra, you see there's no EMP just yet. By now, if you've charged quickly, you should have EMP. It's actually going to be the Dragon Blade coming out soon.
Yeah, the Nano Boost is there. The Dragon Blade does follow a little bit after, but they're still able to get the mileage there, even though there was a little bit delayed. I was surprised they actually put it on him, didn't opt to go for Sensei. They do often, you know, it's not unusual to see that Nano Boost go out onto a Winston if no one else has ultimates available, but DeToNator do still make it work. And I think they only lost 1 or 2 members. I think they lost Saihade in the process of that, who's now just rejoining the team.
And they're going to be relying a lot on this next, this EMP now, because that's what they've been sort of gearing up towards. And I also noticed they lost control of that health pack room, which is important for DeToNator to have control of, because if they want to get this EMP play going, they cannot be losing that high ground.
Yeah, but by merit of winning that fight, they are able to regain control. So, be happy with that one. Like you said, EMP now available as Machi kind of sniff this one out, try and plan their next move. They do have the ultimates if they can get the picks early, but that's a good EMP, but it doesn't cancel out the Transcendence. Exactly, Can already opening it up with a Pulse Bomb pick, and Anakin well pressured out of this one. Saihade needs to get a lot with this. It does not connect, and now he's pressured out. This is going to be Machi breaking point number 1.
That was so well played from Kiyomi. I mean, also telegraphed by Sabagot. If you're a Sombra player, you cannot be playing EMP that telegraphed. I mean,
tossing out the translocator and...
Well, I mean, not even that, but he was spraying the Uzi, and Rishi is like, oh, look, there's Sabagot. He's waiting for an EMP play. Obviously, he has it because he didn't use it last time. And then he throws the translocator in, and Kiyomi's like, cool, I'm going to use the Transcendence first before you EMP. And then suddenly, you can't get any kills during the EMP.
There's a very real possibility for Machi to snowball here. They don't have too many ults, but they got a lot of mileage out of Rai's Dragon Blade last time. Let's see if they can do it again. And already they are. They catch Dodlov. They get Yoshiharu as well. Great pressure onto Sabagon. 3 coming up for Rai. And they are going to snowball it straight on through, picking out Sensei as well. This will be a full round of respawns, but then they need to be careful how they contest this. Need to actually wait for a couple members through. Yeah, easy 2/3. And now DeToNator have to commit to the defense. They don't quite have all their members out yet, and already Dodlov is picked. Machi are in control of this one, and they actually still have the ultimates as well. Good wall off, stops anything extra coming through out of Kant, but Rai is still there on the point itself to put the pressure down. The Mei, now no Icicle available as the pressure comes out from Kant. The kill closed out, and they just need to pick off a few more members. There is a bit of a stall coming out from Sensei, but again, Machi, they still have the members, they still have the ultimates. The Crown can stall if they really, really need, but they don't need. They just... Actually, hold on. They didn't quite get a few over the line at the last minute there. DeToNator kind of held on.
I was surprised because I was expecting Anakin to use the Dragon Blade, but I guess they were able to hold on long enough that even Anakin knew, like, I don't need to use this here. 2/3 is all much he's going to get, and I think 2/3 will just have to kind of be happy with, because even 2/3 means you're really set up to make a great play, to really make a great attack following this. So, I mean, can't be too sad about that.
Like I said, though, I'm quite surprised they didn't actually close it out there. They had the control over the point, and they actually had all the members for it as well.
Sensei's Primal Rage stalled out for way too many respawns.
Yeah, it really did. I feel like Machi actually didn't prioritize shutting down Sensei, because you can actually shut him down during the Primal Rage anyway, but here's going to be the next commit out of Machi early. Transcendence. I'm getting all my ultimates mixed up today, Kiyomi. They're able to convert the kills out now. Rai once again with this Dragon Blade. He does lose his life for it, but already they're all over this one. No ult out of Yoshiharu on that. They get all the kills coming up. Now Anakin might not even be able to jump on to contest. No, he won't. And now the pressure is on DeToNator to take us to a double time bank.
Absolutely, and you know, Anakin as well on the hog. Bad choice. You need something a little bit quicker to get back onto the point. So, yeah, not really what you want. Well-placed.
Not a fast runner.
Well-placed Transcendence by Kiyomi the second time around, just completely blocking out Anakin. So every single sort of win condition for DeToNator just didn't really work there. Even the EMP at the end, they lost too many members. It was just a little bit too late. They needed to combo the EMP with the Dragon Blade and not the Dragon Blade first, because you want to get in there before the Transcendence gets used. And now a lot of players, a lot of teams are using Transcendence specifically to counter EMP. If you can read the EMP, you can sense the EMP coming, you Transcendence just before it happens, and the EMP does nothing to your team.
By the way, if we had any doubts about Rai, I think he has started kind of putting them to bed in this one. Every single fight win on the second point for Machi, both there and then before the time bank as well, came down to Rai getting a huge Dragon Blade and comboing it out nicely, timing it well with the other aggressive ultimates coming out of Machi. You know, this Transcendence, even the Primal Rage that they use very aggressively on the very first fight, on the very first cap through. So, honestly, Rai is really pulling his weight here.
I think so. I think he's pulling his weight, but I would still say Nuns would pull it even harder. If this was Nuns playing on the Genji, for real, because I think, you know, when you watch the series that Machi played yesterday against Hong Kong Attitude, knowing how good Hong Kong Attitude currently are, you know, 2-2 against AHQ and even one match win against Blank, and Machi were that close with them. Nuns pulled a lot of weight that I don't think even Rai could pull at this stage. As good as Rai's looking.
I think that's quite fair to say. By the way, Machi kind of paying for the lack of hit scan here. Sensei out on the Pharah. Try and get a bit of pressure into the skies here. Need to convert some kills through, but they are doing a little bit of work to that end here. Need to get some few quickly enough so that they can get onto that second point. Like I said, pressure is on them to get the double time back. There they go.
Actually tripled, you know, I just realized it was Sensei playing the Pharah, so, you know, there it is.
Triple DPS, yeah.
But the main tank went into Yoshiharu, so that is a little bit different.
That was good. That was right as the sleep was coming out, and it actually would have connected if it weren't for that. The commit is there from D-Crown to kind of get one through, but yeah, Canon's already swapped onto the Sombra. They're admitting that this one is probably gone. Now it's just, what can we actually get in return? Like, are there any extra kills, extra ult charge we can get for D-Crown potentially? And they do get a little bit for him, but Machi will lose this first point.
And playing against the Mercy Rays as well is going to be an interesting battle, because one of the big weaknesses for attackers on Temple of Nurse and just Assault in general is when you start to lose too many members, you get even trades, you're not going to win that actual cap out onto the second. So the Mercy Rays kind of gets your team back in quickly enough that you really overcome that disadvantage with the respawns.
Yeah, the tempo res can be absolutely huge, but you do have to time it right as well, make no mistake. It's not quite available, but it should be available for this fight. Machi really don't have anything up just yet aside from this pulse bomb. They're going to try and look for this Mercy with it. He doesn't want to throw it out just yet. Sabagod, hard pressured. Pulse bomb is wide, but Sabagod dies just as he gets the res, and that should take the wind out of the sails on this one, even as they convert a couple of kills over. Rai is still holding on to a pulse bomb. That is so unfortunate. The rocket barrage not enough. They need to squeeze a third through here, given that this is now a lost fight for them. They're going to try and do it with Anakin's Dragon Blade. They actually will squeeze a third through, my goodness. They're going to try and get more for it now. Kiyomi does get a great response kill, and now the EMP to come out makes it hard for Anakin to get anything else. Flashbang.
Kiyomi.
Yeah, the third does come through. That is connected. Sabagod, whoa, he was going in for a res, but no such luck. They do just have to take this one on the chin. Still plenty of time, though, to get these remaining 2/3 through.
Yeah, I think for DeToNator, 2/3 would have been the goal there because they had enough kills. Unfortunately, they couldn't kill Rai fast enough. That was the biggest crutch for keeping the point alive for Machi, in fact. So DeToNator losing Sabagod that early, you actually see how long he takes to get back to the point. Even switches off the Mercy. It's just not even going to happen with that anymore. They're going to switch completely. They just switched 3 heroes. Yoshiharu onto Diva, Sensei onto the Winston, and Sabagod onto Zenyatta.
That was actually really rough. I mean, sure you don't, like... It is the mark of a good team to change when you should, even though you had ultimates you wanted to use, but that res can be so influential. I still think that was an odd call. The trade through onto Sensei as well means that they'll be kicking themselves for not having that res right now, because this is now pretty much an unwinnable fight. Again, even trades are not good enough for the attackers, and Machi, they do kind of throw all their defensive tools out here to secure this fight, but it is a secured fight. DeToNator, they do still have to get this to double time bank, or they just lose.
Absolutely, and they're going to eventually run out of time here as well. 3 minutes is still a decent amount of time to work with, and I guess that's kind of what they're banking on, because when 3 people in your team change, you lose three players worth of ultimates, especially a full charge ultimate. You're kind of saying, we recognize we're going to be severely behind economy-wise. We're going to take a little bit of time to get ourselves back up there, but we have the 3 minutes, and we're going to use the entire 3 minutes to do that. And
now, once again, they're going to be fighting into an EMP anyway. They are going to have a hard time of this. They're going to look to go aggressive now if they can, but already losing Saihade. And it's just going so pear-shaped. Anakin, again, he's going to try and turn this one back around with the Dragon Blade, but look, the Machi have wrapped around them. He's having to run away from the point just so that he can engage the team. Machi, they have all the tools. They are the ones being proactive. And DeToNator, I feel like they've made a huge mistake by making these swaps, because this isn't even a team comp that's actually working against what Machi are doing anyway.
Well, the biggest problem would be if they actually kept that initial team composition, playing, by the way, into Kiyomi's McCree with the Pharah, and then, you know, they'd be swapping now. Swapping now would be far worse than swapping like a minute ago.
That is fair. But, I mean, that's a lot of fear of Kiyomi's McCree. I mean...
That's just one thing. Like, I don't want to say, like, that's the big reason, but...
In any case, here's the next aggressive move. Oh, good cancel on the Deadeye, actually kind of forcing that one to be stopped up. DeToNator are actually on this point because Machi had to give them a bit of space, but that is space that Machi can keep this fight going for themselves. EMP is now here for Kant, waiting for the commit here. Sabagod has already thrown out the Transcendence, goes down to Kant. That's a headshot. DeToNator, they are already losing this fight now. Again, they've just lost too many members, and they aren't even opting to commit ultimates when they could have. Now they're just walking away from this fight with ultimates they could have used. They are running short on time to actually push this one over. You can only take so many losses before you end up just losing the game outright.
Well, like I said, they were going to wait.
Oh, and they still die.
Yeah, well, I said they were going to wait for the entire 3 minutes to really get their push. I think when you change 3 members up, you are playing for the entire 3 minutes. It's actually still losing members, so I don't know what's quite gone in there for DeToNator. Time is just kind of slipping away here, already under 1 minute. This is going to have to be a big push. I don't believe they're going to get a second push out of this, because they're probably going to commit onto this one with their ultimates. If they don't do it this fight, they're going to end up playing for respawns, and we've already seen what happens when they're stretched for time. Machi are extremely good at that timing attack.
I mean, sure, you have the opportunity to play to use that whole 3 minutes, but I really disagree with this, because we're already in the first time bank. It's like DeToNator have forgot that. If you cap it in overtime here, I don't believe you actually get that extra minute. You just have to first hold Machi to force a draw. That's a tough situation to be in. They've already lost Yoshiharu on this fight. They are failing time and time again on the execution. They are not respecting where the game currently sits, not respecting the need to push it to double time bank. They are going to get repelled, and with 10 seconds remaining, they aren't even going to get to double time bank. DeToNator, they get 3-0'd by Machi.
Kiyomi's actually done a great job on the Machi. That was kind of a bit of a question mark. We're saying like how good, because we always knew Kiyomi had a little bit of DPS in the back pocket. We've seen him play this on the Soldier. He plays the Ana quite well. He plays a little bit of Sombra when needed, but Kent's picking up the Sombra most recently. So wow, I mean, it's great to have this kind of player in your back pocket. It's like running a team now with 4 DPSs because you still got Nuns and Rice sort of swapping sides there as well. But at the end of the day, I would say kind of expected here. I would say no matter what DeToNator we're going to do there, that initial push from them with the res available was going to be their best push. That was going to be the push where they actually had ultimates to use. They had the pressure. They got to play in a situation where Machi was still setting up, didn't quite have enough tools to use yet. They botched that one up, lost the res without being able to protect Sabagon, and that was a bit unfortunate.
Yeah, and look, I honestly do think that as much as there are great reasons to swap, sometimes you actually have to go for what may seem like the quote-unquote less good thing, just because if you have to force it to double time back, given that you did actually get that third, if they hadn't got the third, I could have agreed with the swap, but they'd already got a third, only had to get 2 through. A tempo res could have won them that. It could have put them into double time bank with more time. Yeah, it's a little bit harder. It's a higher risk, higher reward strategy, but the low risk strategy uses up so much time, and when you are already in time bank and you have to push it to double time bank, you actually can't play with the time the same way that you can on the very first attack before you're in time back. And I really feel that was not at all respected by
What
DeToNator.
I'll say to that is, stuck between a rock and a hard place. There was no good solution there for DeToNator.
Yeah.
They took one of the options, and I don't even know if it was the wrong one. It was just
didn't
a choice.
work. It didn't work.
Well,
yeah.
I don't know that either of them were going to work. So that was
that's
why I say between a rock and a hard place, because it was like, pick your poison here. Both the options don't look very attractive. And either one may work, and neither one may work.
Yeah,
that just ended up being the case.
we do have to be fair in saying that. And look, yeah, if they couldn't push it over the line with the option that they did take, maybe they wouldn't have been able to do it with the one that they didn't. But you still can't help but feel this was one that actually, a team that did actually cap out that second point on their initial attack. They had more time than Machi, in fact, to do it by only a slim margin, only about 20 seconds. But they had the raise. I don't know. They had a lot of tools to do it. It's just. The whole thing does feel a little unfortunate.
Let's not take that first attack as a standard for DeToNator.
No, certainly not.
Because I think there were special circumstances that DeToNator took advantage of, and Machi also put themselves into a little bit of a corner there. So, it was just well played from DeToNator and poorly played from Machi. So I don't want to use that as like, that's a standard for, DeToNator can do that every time. They absolutely can't do that every time.
And on the whole, it just feels a little unfortunate at the end for DeToNator, because you really did feel that this was a place where they could have actually picked up an extra map when maybe it was only, the only one they would get. But I mean, still, that DeToNator can actually pull off these map wins, and that they can pull them off, if you will, fair and square, right? Not just because they get some fluke upset or anything like that. Like, they are really challenging some of these teams a little bit. They're not challenging over a whole series, but they are providing a much bigger challenge, I think, than a lot of these teams are expecting. So it is unfortunate to not be able to push it over the line against Machi when you could do it against AHQ, but it was because their execution wasn't quite there. And they are fielding a bit of a new roster. There are some things to address for this team, but actually, unlike many weeks ago at the start of this tournament, I do actually feel quite confident that DeToNator really can fix mistakes. They've already done it once. I really feel they can do it again. And I actually do feel there is a lot of promise in this lineup.
Yeah, well, just like the end of Temple Anubis, they are running out of time. They have, in fact, now gotten past, although not with the result they wanted against the most challenging team this evening. They will be going up against Fireball after this as well. So that's going to be, I would say, a much more winnable matchup for them. Fireball are a team that I still think are below Machi at this stage, but a team that has also made a decent amount of progress. And these now are the two teams, DeToNator and Fireball, that have most recently made actual roster swaps and not just subbing players in and out. Because AHQ have been subbing players in and out since the start. Fireball and DeToNator now in the final round robin actually say, look, we got a new guy, or in the case of Fireball, we got an old guy. We got an old new guy who's actually super young.
Old guy,
so
new version. Yeah, he is an absolute spring chicken. The only thing to maybe address in that, I'm, just looking forward a little with that DeToNator Fireball. Yeah, both teams have made some change ups in their rosters, but I do feel like Fireball's has been a change that had immediate effect and immediate success. I feel like DeToNator's is one that is a good swap, but hasn't actually had that immediate success. And it will take a little bit of time. Maybe actually this has been the time they need to kind of warm up, realize what's going wrong, and they will fix this in time for the Fireball series. But that is a real big time crunch. So the onus is still on them to step it up and meet Fireball.
I would say it's also a difference between Fireball. One of their biggest problems was that tank position for the longest time. So even when you look back at round robin 1, they were trying to figure out like who plays the Zelfix play, there's Rocket play, what's going on here. Okay, now Rocket plays it. So it's been a bit of a bumpy ride in that direct regard. So it looks like a far more direct improvement because look, they finally got the original main tank player from Thailand that they wanted to use at the start, but they couldn't for various different reasons. Versus, I don't even believe DeLay was really underperforming or anything. I mean, I don't know what their sort of team communication or anything like that behind the scenes is, but on the surface, it just kind of looked like he was fine, he was doing his job, and putting in the new support player, Sabagod, it doesn't look like immediately a bump up because I don't think the original supports were really lacking to start with, whereas when you look at Fireball, their tank was a bit of a problem, so they patched it up, and that's why it looks so much better.
The one I actually find the most surprising truly on DeToNator is popping in Sensei over Samurai D. That one, it makes me wonder actually if maybe Samurai D is unwell or if there is another reason he's not able to play. It is unusual to put your coach on, but that is, you know, one of the reasons you would actually field your coach. I don't feel that that's really much of a permanent swap. So if that is the case...
I'm going to say it's not, because I have seen DeToNator actually opening up applications for their team. Specifically, I believe it was for tanks, so there it is. So they are
spicy.
So they are looking for a more permanent replacement rather than putting Sensei there. I guess
That's interesting.
It's an okay sort of band-aid solution because Sensei was the original tank player anyway.
Certainly.
And maybe it actually works out and they say, okay, this is just what we're going to go with because it actually works. Let's go on to the play of the game though. No talk with the D.Va play. One of the big moments for this guy was, trying to remember the map.
King's
Maybe
Row.
It was the map where he sort of just got 3 or 4 kills on himself. I actually think that was Nepal, but I could be wrong. You might be right.
Well, to be honest, actually, there were a few times it happened. Like, there was one where he was kind of able to do it on Temple of Anubis on the very first round of attacks. He was able to get that we saw on King's Row. The attack was like on the cusp of being stopped up. It was really, I felt there was really only Kant who had room to play with because it did still feel like No Talk had to be playing a defensive D.Va to keep the supports alive. They'd already lost to Winston. And then his self-destruct picked up 2 kills. Bam, it was over the line just like that at what was probably the most dire looking situation for Machi. You know, it caused the win to happen right there and then. I really think that was a well-deserved play of the game.
All right, let's take a look at the post-match interview. It is going to be with, in fact, with Ryan. I'll be translating this one over. You've just returned to us after not being on the roster for a while.
就是在这段没上场的期间，我都还是会持续练习。
So I've still been practicing with the team a lot.
然后就这样。
Yeah, so I've just been scrimming with the team in the meantime. What kind of practice and what kind of preparations in particular?
攻击脚基本上我都可以使用，所以就是每一支都专精一下，练一下这样子。
哦，专精一下，因为我们知道说你们团队目前有3种组合，一个是 Ken 加 Nance， 一个是你加 Nance， 然后
Alright, so we're in particular practicing the duos. There's actually 3 duos in the team, so he's been practicing specifically with Canton a lot of time.
Nance 的话，虽然单兵比较强，但是比较像无头苍蝇。
He's actually played in a duo with Nuns as well, and he says the communication between him and Nuns is the biggest problem. But because when he plays with Kant, instead, Kant has much better communication that he can sort of work together with, and they play with objectives way better. Is that more comfortable? And he says yes. What kind of, does he say much? What kind of feedback does he give? Or Kant really says, you know, when we should go and who we should target.
好，谢谢瑞接受我们的访问，再次恭喜 A 明星赢得这场比赛。
Ray
下一场比赛呢
with a
是
few
由
of
今
his
天
thoughts
进
on the
行
different
迎战
various
是
combos they run.
Fireball 接下来我们要把时间交给
That's quite interesting actually because we did also note that Nunes was also known for having a couple of communication issues there.
All right, so let's take a look at the couch interview now with we have No Talk Yoshiharu and of course the translator from DeToNator.
各位的玩家来接受我们的采访哦。那就是其实今天就想问一些关于坦克方面的问题吧，因为
Here to ask
应该
a
说是
few tank
Overwatch
related
这个游
questions.
戏呢，其实跟一般传统的射击游戏不太一样。那它有一个坦克的元素在里面，就像我们平常有时候玩什么魔兽世界啊，或什么 MMORPG 的时候，才会有这个坦克的
Overwatch feels like a
所以算是
very
一个比较
unique
特别的
FPS
位
that
置
has this tank role that only really appears in, I guess, more RPG, MMO, even related type of games. So
ポジションがあってすごく MMORPG に似ていてだけど FPS ですっていう
那我们这边先来问 No Talk 好了。当初接触 Overwatch 的时候，为什么会选择要玩一个坦克
why
的
did
位
you
置？
choose to play tank?
我第一季没有玩坦克，
I didn't start with tank.
怎么会玩坦克？因为可以保队友啊，
可以保队友，
对啊
你是为了团队
It's
牺
good
牲
to
奉
it's
献
it's
才
good to protect
让自己
the
玩一
team.
个坦克
可以。保队友就对了。
哇，你不只会吸，还是一个好男人，有没有？
He plays it
没有
specifically
问
for
题
the
哦。那
team
这边也
to
想
be a
问
team
游戏
player.
Hello 一点，一个就是同样的问题啊，就是当初为什么接触这是一款射击游戏，为什么会
Same
选择一
for
个坦克的位
Yoshiharu.
置？
Why did you choose to play this position?
オーバーウォッチっていうゲームは FPS ゲームでどうして最初タンクっていうポジションを選んだのでしょうか？
そうですね、サブタンクの場合特に攻撃と味方を守るというその DPS 要素とサポート要素、またあとタンクのそのポジションを取る、ポジションを維持するっていうその3つのことができるので、もう全部やりたいっていう性格だから、まあそのポジションを選びました。
他说就是副坦位是一个可以攻击，然后可以保队
So
友，
he says on
然
the
后
flex
还
tank
有
role you can be quite flexible.
当
You can
坦克这样子三
you
元
can
素
do
合
damage.
为
You can
一的
also
一个
protect your team, and you can
位
also
置，所以他
tank
觉得
damage as
他
well.
全部都想玩
So。he feels like this is the one position where he can sort of do everything.
那这就是为什么他会选择玩 Diva 这个角色。
So why particular diva?
それはディーバというキャラを選んだ理由なんでしょうか？
まあ、本当はもうザリアでやってたんですけど、そのメタの変化で、まあ、ディーバになって、まあ、最初ディーバ選んだ理由はそうじゃないんですけど、ただディーバもそういう面がある、もう味方を守る、ポジションを取る、敵を倒す、その3つのあるんでやってて楽しいですね。
他原本是玩扎利亚出身的
So I
选
actually
手，
started playing
但
Zarya.
因为 Meta 会一直不断的变化，
But right
然后
now,
配合 Meta，
the meta
他
has
了 Diva 的角色
changed, and the
那
meta
Diva
is
也
more
可以
favorable
就
for
是
Diva.
达到他喜欢的那个3元素，所以他
So I
觉得
can be very flexible
觉
on
得
diva,
玩
and
Diva
this
也
is
不错。
this is the next best bet for
那
me.
讲到 Diva 这个角色，我这边要问 No Talk 一个问题哦，就是你也是一个这个专精 Diva 的
You're
玩
also
家
a
嘛
diva
对不对
player, No
那
Talk.
玩 Diva 的时候有什么小诀窍或什么可以跟我们大家可以
So what do you
跟大
really
家分享
focus
一下
on? What do you look
就
at when you
整
play the
场
hero?
就一直按着右键，你就赢了。
So usually I just hold down the right
只
click
按
and
右
we
键
can
就
win.
真的
走来走去，
对，
逛街
Just walk around
按
with
右
right
键
click.
就跟着队友冲，然后右键他们，然后
If I
给
can
他们打破。
Dive forward with my right click with the
最主要的
matrix.
目标就是要帮助
That's
how we
队
sort of
友
win.
打出破口。
对，
OK，那这边游戏哈鲁有什么不一样的见解吗？
Same for
ディーバ
Yoshiharu.
の使い方とかテクニックをみんなに教えてください。
そうですね、まあ基本はマトリックスがすごく性能が高いので、それで味方を守ること、まあ、あと勝つためのテクニックとしてはウルトの使い方、その分断するために使う、まだ重要なタイミングで自分を回復するために使う、あとはもうそのうまく柱とかを利用すると、うまい相手でも3キルとか4キルとか使えるくらい強力なウルトなので、まあ、そうやってキャリーしたりです。
他说就是Diva 就是最主要还是防御力场好好的使
The
用。
most important thing is
那
to play
第二点他觉
defensively
得
to
就是
protect the team.
一个好的大绝放大的时机。
Also, the ultimate
可能
is
很
really
多种
important,
就是像是
timing
标
the
保
self-destruct
自保
properly.
的大或是分开阵
So
型的
if
大，
you're looking to
或是
get kills or you're looking to
它
zone
有
the
一些
enemy,
技巧是就是利用建筑物让Diva 的大绝可以就是让人无法预测它到底是掉到哪里。
哦
just
之类
really
那这样
really
就可以
position
carry
the
整场
self-destruct well
哦
as
这样的
well,
话，其
just
实也是
to
有
get the
很
most
多
out of
的
it.
小环节要注意的哦。
是
每次他在讲话的时候，我都要这样一直点头，这样假装好像有听懂的感觉。
So when Yoshiharu is talking, Lil Balls likes to nod his head so he can pretend to understand what he's talking about.
分かってるように演じるのは大丈夫ですか？
大丈夫です。
都没有听懂。好，就是我以前就是在当选手的时候，也是玩坦克位置的玩家哦。
So
那其实
Lil Balls
玩
says
坦克
I
的
used
时
to
候
play
心里
tank
都会有
when
很
I was
多
a
话
player
想
as
对
well,
队
League
友
of
说，
Legends.
你知道吗？就是哎呀，你们怎么都不跟上啊，或者是什么，就是很多话，你知道吗？那
He
那
says
他有
he's
什
a
么
lot
东
of
西想对你
thoughts
的队
about
友说吗？身为一
sort
个
of
坦
his
克
own
位，
team, has any kind of frustrations or
跟我的队友
就他们不要倒就可以了，不要脑冲啊。
别脑冲啊！
对，有时候跟不到啊，
跟不到，
真的跟不到啊，
真的跟不到。
So he's saying sort
还是要
of
蛮温和的。
对啊。
对，还是要蛮温和。
don't come if you can't sort of
那
follow
游戏
up.
哈鲁这边呢？
サブタンクを務めていて、何かメンバーに伝えたいことありませんか？
そうですね。サブタンクは最初に動くヒーローじゃないので、最初に動いてもらうメインタンクに主導してもらってそれをサポートする感じ。プラスあと DPS サポート陣が何をしたらいいのか伝えてもらって状況も教えてもらって、そしたらそれをまたカバーできたりするので、そうですね。そんな感じですかね。
就是他觉得副坛并不是一个主动要出击的，
He says you don't really need to take too much initiative on the flex tank. It's more about working together with someone else in your team.
他们队伍的某
Work as a duo.
赶快给我动啊！是这样子吗？没有问题哦，我们非常感谢两位可以来接受我们的采访啊。那我们的
So there you
那
go.
边我们也跟
Couple
观众
thoughts from
说
both the
拜拜
flex
咯
tank players on both of their teams there as well.
Yeah. Little Ball's pitching in as well. Why not? Different game, different time. That was a long time ago as well that he was playing.
Season 2.
Yeah. Season 2 Worlds was where Little Balls on Type A Assassins was able to take the cup, and it's all been downhill from there. No, he's a fantastic player, really great guy as well. But that was an interesting bit of insight from him, and actually is not completely irrelevant either, because the way you play as a team when you're a tank, it actually translates across most games, to be completely frank with
Probably,
you.
yeah.
It is a very team-oriented role.
Of course, he was known as Alistair was his main pick back then as well, so there he goes.
Yeah,
Anyway, Machi 3-0, DeToNator 0-3, one more chance, so they're going to come up against Fireball pretty soon as well, so we'll have to see how they go about that one, and we'll find out what happens after this break.